Welcome to the podcast that passes poor performance on pop culture. I'm one of your hosts, Darren Duncan, alongside with my best friend, Audie Marsh. We're just a couple of cool cats casually causing some chaos with conversation. We're here to entertain you, not hurt your feelings, so don't blame us. What it is, homeboy?
What's up?
How are you doing this Friday evening? Saturday evening. I forgot we didn't go live last night.
Yeah. I'm doing great. I'm actually enduring some resin printing right now. So I got my window open. Like,
awesome.
It's so potent in here. I'm probably going to get cancer from this. I'm not even kidding you.
But don't say that. I need a co-host. I can't do this by myself. Come on, man.
Yeah. So I'm just sucking in the fumes right now for you, for this podcast, for viewers. Like,
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
You know what else I appreciate?
What's up?
All of our viewers, our amazing viewers that we love so much for hanging out with us on a Saturday evening. Super gigantic shout out to all of our patrons, our producers that's been donating money to our Patreon. We really, really appreciate it. That's
absolutely.
It's so amazing that there's people out there that are doing that for us. And at the end of the episode, we will all give you a very special shout out and give you producer credits.
I'm gonna send this to Brent. Give me a second.
All right. So while you're doing that, I will inform everyone on tonight's topics. We have a special guest, our first special guest named Vladimir Dewinter. He is the CEO of a mystery box subscription company entitled Zompire. Very cool company. I can't wait to have him on and converse about that, as well as him growing up in Baltimore. We're going to talk about FSU, which is some people say it's a gang, some people say it's not. We'll get into that. It is definitely a group of individuals who like to fight and cause a ruckus, and they are called FSU. It stands for Friends Stand United. We're also going to talk about sideshow attractions, freak shows, things like that. People stapling boobies to butts. And as well as the Club Kids, which if you're not familiar with that, there's a movie called Party Monster. And yep, we're going to get into all of that interesting shit. And I hope you enjoy it. We've put a lot of work into this. So I hope you have fun.
All right. So
should we bring in on our guest or what?
Yeah, let's
the
bring
man
him
of the
on.
hour.
He's nipping at the butt right now. He's messaging me right now to come on.
I can't message you, man. I'm what am I gonna be missing every seventh letter? It's gonna look like what's that serial killer, that the alphabet killer or something like that. You have to decode it.
Yeah, I don't even know who that is. The alphabet killer. That doesn't sound familiar to me.
Yeah, well, maybe that'll be my name.
About it.
I try to write my note and I'm missing every freaking seventh letter.
What finger, man? You just got a finger amputated on Wednesday. What was that all about? You smashed it?
Yeah, so my day job for a while was I was a machine operator at a lumber mill, and one of the sizes we ran is a 4x6 piece of lumber that was 12 feet long, and in front of me where the lumber would kind of come up, there was a little metal guide rail, and when I flipped it like this, it landed on my hand, and basically the weight of the 4x6 landing on my finger on that guardrail blew the tip off the bone pretty much. So they stitched it back together, and I was going to physical therapy for like a year, and it just would not get any feeling back. It kind of felt like, you know, when you sit on your ankle for too long and your foot goes to sleep.
Right.
It felt like that 24/7, like even when I was sleeping. And so I had to take like gabapentin to like calm it down, you know what I mean? Man. And so it just got after 14 months to a point where they're like, look, either you got to live the rest of your life on these drugs and your finger this way, or we're going to cut it off. And I was like, well, I'm doing my best to look like a Bond villain. So I got the scar down my face. I got a gold tooth. You know what I mean? Like, every villain I've ever known, it was like he had 4 fingers on his left hand. And that was like a distinguishing mark, right? So I said, fuck it, man. Just take it off, I guess. No worries.
Yeah. And they let you keep it, right?
Yeah, they let you keep it?
Yeah, so he originally was like, no, but then he started telling me about, like, you know, there's a few native tribes where I live at in Washington that, you know, you have to have it to get buried or something like that. And so they make exceptions. And well, I was like, well, I'm not, a part of any tribes or anything, but it is really important to me. And I pretty much sweet talked them into it. And so they have to send it to like pathology, I guess it's called, and they preserve it in some manner, and then they'll give it to me. He said it takes a few days, but they'll give me a call to go pick it up.
So is it going to be in like a jar of formaldehyde, or what? They're going to stuff it like a deer, or what the fuck?
I'm not really sure at the moment. I'm hoping it's just like a jar of formaldehyde, because I thought something cool would be to get like a glass vial with like somebody fashion a top, so I could wear it as like a necklace. So I'm just giving everyone the finger. You know what I mean?
You know what you should do? You should like cut little pieces of it and then put it in your mystery box and be like, here's a piece of the owner. You own a piece of Zompire.
Yeah.
I'm not
You know what I mean?
kidding you. People were telling me to raffle it. I had people like, I'll buy it off you. And I'm like, dude, that's just too weird, man. Like,
Yeah,
I want it for me. I have like a wet specimen collection of like different animal parts and brains and whatever, So it'll be nice to have like a part of myself in my collection. I think
Right.
that's pretty cool.
No, I get it. It's good to see you be such a good sport about it, because I'm sure it was kind of sad and it sucks to get your fucking finger chopped off, but you seem to be handling it very well, and I'm proud of you for that.
Funny story. 2 days before I went and got this, I went into the hair salon down the street, and I walked in. I says, hey, if I'm missing this finger, do I get 10% off? And they all kind of giggled at me. And I'm like, no, I'm getting it cut off on Wednesday. Can I get a discount if I come get a manicure? And she's like, are you serious? And I'm like, I'm dead serious. And she's like, all right, well, you're taking this really, really well. Like, this is kind of funny. And I'm like making a big joke about it. You know what I mean? But
yeah, what else you going to do? Sit around and be sad all day about it,
It's my left hand, and like I said, it falls into my Bond villain mystique.
For sure.
Do you still feel it? Do you like still feel it?
Last night, I swear to God, I thought I had an itch on the end of my finger, and I went like that, and I was like, oh, it's not there. There's definitely times where I kind of think it's there, but I know it's, then you realize.
It's like a phantom feeling. Like when you got a real long beard and you chop it off for like a week, you keep trying to go for it to.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's just not as serious. It's your finger. I apologize for comparing it to facial hair, but that's the only thing I could think of, man.
Beard.
Sometimes I felt like people thought it was a lot, like maybe it's more to, it's not like, I don't think of it as much as other people do, or people are more concerned about it or whatever than I am. I'm like, it's just a finger. It's not one I use very often. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
The ring finger. My old lady's bummed.
Yeah, she's definitely taking it. She's not taking it as well as you, apparently.
No.
So why don't you talk about Zompire for the listeners that are unfamiliar with mystery subscription box companies and Zompire and what you do, man? Because it's a really cool company. And I got tons of shit from you guys, and I want the listeners to know about it, man.
For sure, man. Thank you. Yeah, I was a subscription box purchaser for a long time, and I just kind of had connections to some celebrities through different conventions like CryptoCon and ZombieCon back in the day when that existed, and I just wanted to try it on my own. I really had no idea what I was doing or getting into, you know what I mean? I just kind of thought I could do something cool and a little bit different based on who I was working with at the time. We were trying to do like those relics, the relic cards you've gotten and stuff, where we were getting dirt from Ed Gein's fucking grave or, something like that. And we would encase them and make them displayable and everything. And so we wanted to do something a little bit different with like relics and screen use relics. But I'll still offer autographs because I know that's a big seller in the mystery box game. Well, that's what a lot of the bread and butter really is where people look for. The other stuff is kind of like, that's really cool stuff, but who did I get this month? You know what I mean?
Right.
And so we started off, my original idea was to do, the box, have it be horror, and then one or two true crime pieces in the same box. And that way we can kind of like utilize the horror to push the true crime stuff. And then we ended up separating into two boxes, and both of them were, pretty successful. And, I feel like just after time, we've gotten, better and better. I look back, I'm sure like anybody else does when they first start doing anything like this, and you see like the first or second, third boxes, and you're like, why were people buying this crap from me? You know what I mean? But then like after 2 years, where we get to a point where You know, I know not everyone was going to feel the same as me, but I was absolutely ecstatic and proud to have Cannibal Holocaust in my box. Like I just don't see anyone else going that route. And that's what I'm into. And I want to I want to put Faces of Death in a box. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah, that'd
just,
be wild.
I want to do the stuff that like really nobody thinks about or nobody cares to do because it's the shit that I like. I love having Johnny Cash's grave dirt on, you know what I mean? When people come over, they're like, "Are you kidding me, man? Like, holy shit, that's so cool." You know, and it's like I like having those kind of relics around instead of like, you know, a NECA action figure. They're cool, but that means
Yeah.
more to me to have that, you know, piece of it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That reminds
So,
me, I was the White House is right down. When I say White House, it was the school for boys in Florida. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it was they killed a bunch of kids and didn't tell anybody, and they buried them. It's a juvenile detention center for boys, but it's right down the road from where I live, and
oh
like
wow.
I was there, and like there's like relics all over the place, and I'm just like just like taking pictures and stuff. I didn't realize it until I got back home, and I'm like, damn, I could have got something,
You
you
just
know,
scoop
like
some dirt up. You
yeah,
know, some
I
people
could have made
don't.
money.
Some people don't really see the value in it, but I think it's, you know, a way to like kind of have some like feel like you have a piece of that moment
Yeah.
in time, whether it's the making of a movie with a, you know, a shirt relic or whatever, or dirt from the gas station in Texas Chainsaw Massacre we did,
Mhm.
you know. Like I just, to me it's like having, if you feel like you actually own that piece, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's Americana, man. It's a part of the history, and it's the closest you can get to owning or being a part of it,
Right.
you know, or having it at your house, you know? We
Well,
all got DVDs and shit, you
the
know?
funny
It's
thing
like
is I am a big sports nerd. I know Audi, you know, me and him have talked sports in the past. And one of the things that they do in sports cards now is they have like autographs on the card and pieces of the jersey worn in the
Mhm.
game embedded in the card. And that's really what got me thinking about trying to do it for Zompire and do it like for horror and true crime stuff, was
Yeah.
the fact that sports were doing it. You know what I mean?
I always wanted a piece of Dale Earnhardt's tire from his car,
the one
or
he
like the
died
piece of
in?
the wreck. Yeah, yeah, or the piece of car that wrecked. And like I'm not being morbid, but I'm being morbid. But
No, I mean, I have
that's the
stuff
kind
like
of
that in
stuff
my
is
house,
yeah, it's
not
kind of crazy.
specifically Dell.
Right, I
I
got
mean,
a
I get
piece of
it.
the robe that Eileen Wuornos wore on death row, you know? We got
Yeah,
strange things like that, and I think it's like,
I mean,
serial killers aren't people to be glorified or looked up to, but it's like I said, it's a part of Americana, it's a part of our
yeah.
history, whether we like it or not, and it's like, I kinda wanna have a little piece of that in my house. Fuck it,
Yeah.
Well,
you
and
Well,
know?
I think that's go
Vlad,
ahead.
I had Charles Manson in this closet for the longest time.
Blood,
I
right? Or his
the blood
ashes.
painting with his ashes,
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
and like I kind of regret getting rid of it, but I made so much money off of it.
right.
Well,
But
one of
yeah,
the things that Zompire kind of got knocked for a little bit in the community was doing true crime stuff. And, you know, it was like that we were glorifying this or paying, you know, some serial killer that. And, you know, what people don't realize is they're supporting it by paying their Netflix bill. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like there, when you pay your Netflix bill, that money doesn't go to just the movies you watch. It goes to everyone who's put content on Netflix.
yeah,
And so you're still financially supporting it if it's online, if you're paying your you know your Netflix bill or your Hulu bill or
yeah,
whatever. So you know what I mean? It's like it's just so hypocritical when people try to jab at us and we're like, really? Like, do you think I bought these from this person? They've been dead for years. They
Right.
didn't make anything off this.
Yeah, exactly, and, I mean, anybody can walk into a Barnes& and Noble and buy a book about Harry Potter, or they can buy a book about Charles Manson. The shit's everywhere. Don't be mad at me for fucking collecting it, you know?
Yeah. Freeze, I could do
I didn't
something
fucking
on this
kill those
page.
people. Fuck you, you know?
Exactly.
So,
I,
Mr. Freeze, he's commenting, he's saying, "Go ahead, Audie, you brought it up, you go ahead and read it."
uh, yeah. He says, "Hey Vlad, could Zompire do something for people under the stairs or serial
Cereal.
killer Richard Trenton Chase, Vampires of Sacramento?"
I
Oh,
feel like
Richard Chase was a sick fuck.
yeah, I've heard that name. I'd have to do some research on that, but I definitely could see doing people under the stairs.
You
That's one of
have
my favorite
before,
movies.
actually, didn't you? You one of the ghouls underneath the stairs. It was
Oh
the
yeah, we did
cover.
Jan Birch.
Yeah, it was the cover
Mm.
of the Fangoria magazine that was in a box.
That's right, dude. He's the nicest. If you ever get a chance to meet Jan Birch, the nicest dude alive. But
Really?
okay, I'm being facetious, but he's a super nice dude.
That's cool. That's good to know, man.
I mean, not
He's-
facetious. I just meant like I was blowing it up. He is a
No,
really nice dude.
I don't
yeah.
even know what that word means, so I'm just kind of like,
Means
huh.
I'm kidding.
That
Like you're
sounds really,
joking.
really intelligent.
Oh, okay.
When you
Right.
look like this, you got to pretend at least.
I'm
that you
over here Googling it. Yeah, keep going.
Right. Reminds me of that movie Bad Teacher with Cameron Diaz. She's just a
Ah.
piece of shit teacher. She's hungover every day, but there's a scene where she meets this little girl's parents and she's like, "Oh, such a precocious child." But like you could just see in her face, she has no idea what that fucking word means. She just heard it before, so she's using it to try to sound smart.
I was yelling at my bank online on the phone earlier, and I said I forget what the word was, but I had to look at Angela and be like, "Did I say that right?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah, get some.
give me my money."
Right. So where are you from, dude? Where'd you grow up?
Well, that's kind of a long story.
We got time.
So I was I was born in Miami. So I'm originally from North Miami Beach. When I was 13, my mom and my stepdad, we moved up to a town called Toms River, New Jersey. And if you're familiar with the show Jersey Shore, in order to get to that beach that they're on, you have to go through my town and over a bridge. So that's how close I was. That was in central Jersey pretty much. But at that time, I would pretty much go back and forth between there, and my dad lived in Baltimore, Maryland. So depending on how in trouble I got, went back and forth. But I did live in Manhattan for like 6-8 months, on and off, probably a year. I've lived in Portland, Olympia, Seattle, San Diego. As far as places I've lived for any amount of time, like 6 months or more. But mostly I've been in the Pacific Northwest for the last 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
But I've also traveled pretty much all over the US.
So being from Baltimore, one of our topics is FSU. Aren't they Boston based, or is
Yeah,
that?
and actually they are Boston based, and I wasn't a part of them until I lived in Seattle. They are they're
Oh, so they have more than one faction. They're
yeah,
spread out. Okay.
right. So it started in Boston in the early 80s, and then by the time I got around to it, which was about 2005 through 2007, 8, there had been Philadelphia, Boston, Chicago, LA, Seattle. There's chapters all over the US.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was thinking, go ahead, Audie.
So, Darren and I were brainstorming on these topics, and he's like, "Yeah, man, FSU," and I was like, "Fuck yeah, man, go Knowles, man, Tallahassee represent." He's like, "No, fuckface, I'm talking about the gang FSU," and I was like, "Dude, what is that even like? What is that?"
You're in the background doing the chop.
Yeah, I was about to like put on a Florida State jersey and we can talk all day about Florida State.
So, well, funny story that actually has to do with FSU and your FSU. When in cities where we would be banned from wearing our gang colors in clubs, for whatever reason, a lot of guys would buy Florida State University stuff that just had the FSU lettering with the arrow tip or something would be on it, but it was a way to wear our letters in the nightclubs without them being triggered that it was they knew it was us anyway.
Yeah,
right. We weren't allowed to wear like our actual colors in the clubs, so we would wear Florida State University. yeah. Like I had a basketball jersey, one of the stitched on basketball jerseys, number 1 on it. I had one of those for a while that I had to wear out to clubs.
That's pretty cool. It's always that gray area.
FSU originally stood for fuck shit up, right? But then they changed it to Friends Stand United, or was it the other way around? Or
it originally was pretty much fuck shit up. That was just kind of the mentality of things, and it was mostly just kind of a joke, and that's what kind of started pulling them together, and then it changed to become FSU or Friends Stand United.
Was Elgin James the guy who basically started it all, or was is he just kind of the one famous for it, or was he like the actual like godfather or whatever of it?
It was him and another Boston guy who actually was the one that made the Boston Beatdown videos. I don't
Yeah.
remember his name because that's way before my time, and in a completely other city. We weren't as tight chapter to chapter wise. Like I knew guys in Boston and Chicago and stuff, but it wasn't as your local guys we were more tight than kind of the national as a national brand. You know what I mean? And again, that's also 16 years ago now, so I couldn't speak on what they're doing now, or how tight knit it is now, but
Right. My introduction to this whole thing was the Boston Beatdown videos. A guy showed it to me probably 10 years ago, and he was speaking very highly of it and bragging of it, how badass they were. And no offense to anybody, but my opinion at the time, I was kind of pissed off about it because the video portrayed them as a bunch of fucking sucker punchers, man. Is like every fight I saw, they're just like beating up this drunk kid or they're
right.
kicking somebody that's unconscious. And I'm like, how is that badass? I'm like, what the
A
fuck are
lot
these
of
guys' problem, man?
a lot of the fights in Boston Beatdown weren't actually members of FSU. It was just fights that were caught on camera in Boston.
That makes a
Um,
way more sense now because I've
yeah,
seen
so
like ghetto brawls and like brawling broads, and then there
bum
was
fights.
bum fights.
Yeah.
That's another
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Love bum fights.
I actually YouTubed it the other day. I was like, nostalgia reasons.
Rufus. When it Rufus? He's like,
Yeah, I think that was
all toothless and shit.
isn't he the one that got it tattooed across his forehead
I
too?
think so. I think he died.
I think
That
so too.
the dude
Yeah.
who started that got in a shit ton of trouble for that, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly.
He did, but I also remember he still made off with like
Shit
$20
ton of
million.
money. Yeah.
Oh, I'm
Money.
sure he did. Because
like the
everyone I
guy
knew
with
had
the
those fucking tapes.
like the guy with the girls gone wild. That
Right.
dude got into a lot of shit too. That was around
But yeah,
Tampa Street, Florida.
so a lot of those fights that you see on there, like a lot of them are bouncers, beating up guys leaving the bar. Some of them are
Okay.
just bar fights and stuff like that. There are certainly guys that were wearing FSU letters in fights. Mostly those are the ones that you see at hardcore shows.
Okay. Because I
So,
was confused. I'm like, if these guys are straight edge, like, why go to the bar? Like
right.
stay away from the bar if you don't want to be around drunks. Like, what did you think was gonna happen? So I'm glad I'm glad I asked about it, and I'm glad you said that because it makes a way more sense now. I'm like, these guys are
So,
assholes.
so
Like,
what?
what
Yeah,
the fuck,
So what would?
it
So
wasn't
what
like
would
that.
they? What would they really do then? Like they would see like a drug dealer on the side of the street or in the club and just beat the shit out of the guy. Like is that
Yeah,
what it was?
that's happened plenty of times. Basically, it was, it originally started off as a way to police the drugs and well, at the time in Boston there was a large Nazi presence, like the
Mm.
skinhead.
Neo-Nazi punk rock
Right.
Nazis, not
And
German Nazis, Audie.
right. And
Sorry.
basically they band together to kick them out of the scene because they weren't racist and they didn't feel like that should be a part of the hardcore scene, and so they band together to basically kick the shit out of these guys and get them out. Well, then it became more about policing the scene as opposed to just being a part of it, and then I think that's where a lot of the later kind of violence and things like that, where it was a little bit more, a lot of people involved with a little bit of people, or our motto was friends don't let friends fight alone. So
Okay.
if your brother's in a fight, you start fighting.
Mm.
Yeah,
Kind of like us
So
in the army.
there's kind of like a mob mentality in a lot of ways. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
Elgin
Yeah.
James, he said that his plan was to quote victimize the victimizers.
Yeah.
And so they started robbing drug dealers and things like that, kicking them out of their clubs. And the violence was basically like a means to an end. Because pacifism doesn't work. Like Elgin James's parents were activists in the 60s. They smoked a lot of pot and they were his adoptive parents.
Right.
And he must not have liked them. And maybe it was the pot that he didn't like. I don't know why he became straight edge. Maybe that had something to do with it because he didn't like his parents and maybe they drank and smoked pot. And so he didn't
It,
like it. And he wanted to rebel against it, I'm thinking.
he's written a book and he's done a bunch of interviews. And if you listen to him speak, that dude is so smart for being a street kid. You know what I mean? Like for a
Yeah.
legitimate street kid in Boston, that dude is like beyond smart. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, because he grew up in Boston in the 90s. And there's a documentary I seen where he shows where it all basically started at this apartment building. They had no heat, no running water, none of that shit.
Right.
And that's when they started like kicking the crack dealers' asses that were hanging out in front of that building. Him and his buddies would start doing that. Um, Let me ask you this. What do you think where do you think it all kind of started from? Because I was thinking it's it could be like the evolution of rebellion because like in the 50s we had the greasers and they were a bunch of rock and roll badasses. And then the 60s and 70s kind of chill out and they were just pacifist or whatever the word is. And then like it's just everything skips a generation. So I'm thinking maybe in the 80s, that's when punk rock started coming around and they were getting rebellious. And then the 90s, they started doing this anti-drug thing, this straight edge thing. Do you think that kind of makes any sense? Like evolution of rebellion or
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the kids that were born in like the late 70s, like my era, late 70s, 80s, and were really hitting their stride in the very early 90s, were introduced to bands like Earth Crisis and that had these strong anti-drug messages because I think that it's coming up in the what do they call that when we were kids? The house key necklace kids or whatever, keychain kids. You know what I mean? Where
I've,
you had
I've never heard that. Doesn't sound familiar at all. Explain it.
yeah. So keychain kid, I think it was called keychain kids. You had basically had a shoestring with your house key on it, and latchkey kid. That's what it is. You would have your key on a shoestring around your neck in elementary school, and your mom and dad weren't home. They were out doing whatever. So you just took care of yourself, 7, 8 years
Yeah.
old, you know. But
Okay.
we're not talking about like small town USA. I was doing it in Miami. You know, people were doing it in Boston and New York and, you know, hard neighborhoods where they saw their parents on drugs. And so I think it resonated growing up at that time to like, don't become that, do better than that. The town Tom's River I lived in when I was in I think freshman year of high school was called Heroin High, which I know has become a very common name for any high school that has a heroin problem. But like we were having like kids dying at school. It was like really bad.
That's
Like
terrifying as a father. Like you're scared that your kids at a sleepover or party in their teens and they try that shit for the first time and they fucking die because they don't know what
Die.
they're doing.
Yeah.
It's fucking
exactly.
terrifying.
That's
Heroin
crazy.
is a fuck COVID. Like heroin's the real fucking pandemic that scares me, dude.
Yeah.
People die
Well,
from it every day.
and then, you know, just think about like all the other stuff that's out there instead, you know what I mean? Where these kids are just they'll skip everything else. They're like they don't want to smoke weed or anything. They're like just go, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
like
And all the
marijuana was the gateway drug. It was described to us as the gateway drug. It was the first
yeah,
one you tried, and then you
Yeah.
tried some acid, and then you did some coke, and before you know it, you're sucking dick in the parking lot, you know?
funny story. Weed's the thing that keeps me from doing drugs now.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I just couldn't. I
Exactly.
can't get behind the fact that I don't even like going to the doctor when I was little to get a shot, or even in high school. I hated getting shot. Like I didn't cry, but I just
Right,
hated getting fucking shots.
right.
I couldn't imagine self-inflicting myself with a needle. I guess maybe if I'm searching for that high, maybe it doesn't come. Maybe I'm overlooking it and I just do it, but I don't know. And I hate getting water up my nose, so I don't know how people do cocaine. Like I don't
I
know.
I had a long history of drug use. I pretty much quit in 2011 when my sister ended up passing. But before that, I was known as a garbage head, meaning I would try literally anything.
Yeah.
Uh, and it like there was times I like when I was 16 was the first time I overdosed. It was on PCP. I woke up to my mom in the hospital. That was the second time I got in trouble because I also got so the first time I ever did any drug in my life, I took acid, and the guy I was hanging out with had me watch Pink Floyd The Wall. I was like 13 or just turned 14, and I'd never seen Pink Floyd The Wall before.
He
And I feel
sets
like
you up for failure.
it's a very telling part of my life. You know what I mean? Like when
Yeah.
you experience something like that at such a young age, and then to see myself now, I'm like, it's pretty lateral. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
there was
Everything
no way
makes
to go up
sense.
from there. It was a straight shot to hell.
I'm sober, but everything makes sense then.
Right.
Yeah, I
Well,
was definitely the same way. I would do any drug on the table, and like I know a lot of people say this to brag or sound cool, and to me, I'm more embarrassed of it. But
yeah,
yeah,
for
like
sure.
I should not be alive for all of the
Yeah.
crazy fucking things that I've done. The first time I'd done any drug, I was 8 when I first smoked weed. And I think it was just because I had older siblings and I would hang out with their friends and I just wanted to be fucking the cool kid that everyone wants to get stoned. And then
Right.
it just fucking snowball affected. And I mean, before you knew it, I'm fucking 13 years old selling coke, doing coke. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a terrifying fucking thing. So
Yeah.
I straight edge isn't for me because I love drinking, man. But I understand where it comes from, and you're the farther on this conversation goes, the more you're making me appreciate these people. Because at first I thought they were a bunch of scumbag, sucker punching assholes. But
And
you're starting to
we,
make me
we
like them a
exist.
little bit.
We're out there. I mean,
Right.
we used to have a business card, and when you would knock a dude out, you'd throw it on him, and it was like you were knocked out by your local.
Like the Joker and you guys are Batman villains, dude.
We had
That's
those, dude.
amazing.
How many cops like look at y'all and be like, all right, I'm gonna let it go this
There
time.
was
Right. That's a good question.
There's a club in South Seattle called Studio 7, and I was not there this night. This was probably about 3-4 months before I officially joined FSU, but I was still hanging out with all these guys. And there was a show. I don't remember who was playing. I want to say it was like Madball or somebody like that, some like New York hardcore band. And they all went there, and a cop drove by, and of course there's 30 guys standing around in FSU wear and everything. So they all roll up on them, and like they were caught with brass knuckles. I think one guy had like an ounce of coke and a gun on him, and they basically, anyone that was outside, put them in a group together, and they labeled them all the same thing. And
Right.
you know what I mean? It was just really stupid.
They're not straight edge anymore, right? FSU.
No, that ended probably back in like the late 90s or so. Like it when I was around
that far long ago. Damn, I thought that was more of a recent thing. That's crazy.
No, I mean, there's certainly straight edge members.
Right.
But I mean, I was going out and drinking with the guys. We were smoking weed, doing blow, like, you know what I mean? At that time in my life. So it was at that point, no, it wasn't. There was certainly guys, we would go see other chapters, and there are guys that were straight edge, and we'd hang out with them, no problem. It wasn't like as violent as it was, back in like the late 80s, early 90s.
Right. From the research that I'd done, the word straight edge or the term or whatever comes from the band Minor Threat.
Yeah, I think they're the ones that coined it. They have a song or an album called it.
The song is called A Declaration of an Individual Choice, and it's like a 45-second song.
Back in like the late 80s, a lot of the DC bands like Minor Threat and Fugazi and stuff like that, they were really politically charged, and a lot of them were like militant straight edge.
Okay. Have you ever heard of SHARP before? It's an acronym for Skinheads Against Racial Profiling.
Racial
it's
prejudice.
Weird. Oh, is that what it is? Racial prejudice. Okay.
Against racial prejudice. Yeah.
So they're a bunch of white dudes with bald heads. Do they wear the red suspenders and red shoelaces, or is that something else?
There's actually a large number of Latin and Black sharpskins.
Right. Because they were all against against racism, but they called themselves skinheads for some reason.
What the Sharps believe is that, well, I mean, not that they believe it. It's the skinhead movement started
like a tribe.
Down in like Jamaica, through ska and stuff, and then in the late 50s, early 60s, that music traveled to Europe, where at the time, like, there was a lot of problems going on with like people getting work because they were hiring foreigners to do the work up there. So it became like this blue collar kind of pro England mentality, and that's where it branched off and became more of a white nationalist movement or a white power movement. So that's where you get the two different, like, Sharps and Nazis.
Okay, I've heard that before, that like your first skinheads were actually black people, like in Jamaica.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so wild to think about how just another thing the white man stole from the black people, right? Like,
well, it's funny too,
assholes.
at the time in like Jamaica and stuff, when they were being called skinheads, it was actually like an insult, because the Rastas had like huge dreadlocks,
Okay.
So that was like an insult to them, was calling them a skinhead. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
you ain't Jamaican, motherfucker. Why are you shaving your head? Right. That
right.
makes
So
sense.
the music goes through like ska and reggaeton and shit like that. It traveled over to Europe, but because of what was going on in Europe over the time, then with like the basically foreigners taking the work of Englishmen because they would work for cheaper. It became like they kind of like took that blue collar mentality that the Jamaicans had, and adopted it into their own style and started wearing like the suspenders, cuffing the pants, and wearing Fred Perry's and stuff like that.
Right. Mr. Freeze here says he's a listener. He says that he thinks CM Punk brought straight edge back into the limelight. One thing I want to say about that, this is just my own theory, and maybe there's some truth to this. Maybe you can help me figure this out. But because CM Punk wears the X's on his hands, and I see a lot of straight edge guys do that. My own, like, did this come from because when you would go to a club and if you weren't 21, you didn't have an ID, you couldn't drink, they'd draw an X on your hand?
Exactly.
So the bartenders knew not to serve that guy. So now they wear them as like, hey, I don't drink, I don't do drugs. So is that where that came from? That's
exactly
awesome.
right.
I figured that all out all by myself. I didn't read it or anything. So what's the deal with the red suspenders and red shoelaces? Does it mean like blood that you've shed for your crew, or like is that a right that you got to earn to wear that shit? Is it symbolic for anything?
Well, I know that, for different parts of the country, whether you're a sharp or a Nazi or whatever you are, a lot of different shoelaces colors mean different things.
Okay.
There's even like gay pride ones and things like that. So, I mean, I don't know. I know that red is not one to wear unless you're a white supremacist, and it supposedly means that you spilled blood for your race. But I don't, I also know sharps that wear red laces. So
okay, because I had a pair of skater shoes back in the day that had red, because they were red shoes and the laces were red too. And I got fucked with a lot over them. And I'm like, dude, I don't know. My fucking mom bought me these. Fuck off. I just thought they were cool.
Well, yeah,
right.
Those like brown logging boots that come with red laces. Have you ever seen those? Yeah. I'm like, well, what do those guys do?
Right.
They just bought these damn new boots and now they got to buy fucking laces.
Yeah, that's bullshit. So at the end of the day, would you call FSU a gang? Because Elgin James claims that it's not a gang, but by definition, I would say that it is, because the definition of the word gang literally means organized group of criminals. And they might not be robbing banks, but I mean, they are committing assault and battery. That's a crime. So I mean, I'm pulling a technicality here, but at the end of the day, would you guys call yourselves a gang, or what is it?
Well, I mean, I'm no longer a part of FSU.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say would you guys. I apologize for that. That's not what I meant.
I would say that they are a crew.
Okay.
Obviously, anytime you operate on a large nationwide scale, you're going to be viewed as a gang. But to me, it was like, if you were going to be in a gang, you would be, made to sell drugs. You would be made to go do graffiti. You would be made, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't have that like brotherhood feel, because there's always someone above you, like barking orders, and it's usually illegal shit. Like that wasn't the case with us. Like like in a lot of ways, we just protected one another and protected the people we cared about. We were at, where were we at? Warped Tour one year, and I think this is like 2006 or 2007 here in Seattle. And I don't know how much you guys are familiar with hardcore pits. Darren, I think you are. They look like a fucking karate tournament, right?
Yeah, it's very annoying to me. I hate it.
But
swinging their arms around, and
I crowd mosh. I run into the crowd swinging my arms wildly and kicking and hoping to get in a fight. That's how I dance.
Okay.
Crowd moshing. Like I would literally run through the crowd just wailing, you know what I mean? But anyway, so we're there, and one of our guys is in a band, and his drummer is this like kind of like 15-year-old kid, you know what I mean? And he's in the pit and he's just dancing, and I think he threw his arm back and like kind of hit this dude. Well, the dude's like 6'3", just kind of he wasn't like huge, but he was a bigger dude, And so this circle pit starts, and the kid comes around and he fucking just pushes him over. Well, this drummer kid, we'll call him Nate. This drummer kid, Nate, gets up and he kind of puffs his chest up. Well, the big dude just cracks him. Well, we're all standing there and we're like, absolutely not. So everyone just starts fucking swinging. Dudes are running over, swinging. And at the end of it, I get up. The original dude gets up, and Nate's standing like pretty much 2 feet from me, and he just looks at this dude with these wide eyes. And I look over at the dude, and the dude looks at me, and I don't know if he didn't know who I was, but I just kind of threw my shoulders up like this. And as soon as he went like this, I went, boom. and I hit him so fucking hard, he went straight, like the fucking boarded up, you know what I mean?
Right.
Went back and was fished out. And like that kid for years afterwards would tell me about that story, about like how I saved him and all that shit. But that's kind of what it was to me. It was like, don't pick on this little kid. Maybe he hit you, but you're a grown ass man. Like, take it and move on, you know. But to like push him down and try to threaten him and punt, you know what I mean? Like,
stay away from the pit if you don't want to get hit. That's the fucking rule. I've seen so many women like run at dudes and just start punching guys in the face because you bumped into them, and it's like, fucking go somewhere else. What do you think this section is for? Typically, your mosh pits take place in the front center of the crowd. Stay away from it. There's plenty of fucking room for everybody. Go somewhere else if you don't want to get bumped into. But
on tour, I actually hit a fucking bouncer with a mag light for that same kid too.
No shit.
Cracked a bouncer because they bum rushed the stage because they were like trying to shut us off because it was like a Christian straight edge show, and he was saying a bunch of curse words and shit, and all these like militant dudes came up on stage like they were gonna do something, and fucking boop boop boop, and the next thing I know, I had a mag light, and the dude was choking that kid Nate, and I was like, fuck. Not today, buddy.
That's brutal. I think it's funny, like the Christian metalhead guys, like, don't swear. It's like, but you're so hardcore. It's like, you bet your gosh darn rear end we are. You know, like,
but then they'll try to hire dudes to kill their wives.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Dying.
Yeah. The singer of As I Lay Dying did that. Fucking like, wow. Yeah, because he was the Christian dude, right?
Yeah, As I Lay Dying was like an uber Christian band at the time.
Yeah.
And so people were blown away that he tried to hire a hitman to kill his wife.
Yeah.
Because he I think it was like he wanted his kids and she was trying to get like custody or something like that. So he's like, I'll pay this dude 60, I forget what it was, but 20 grand to knock her off. And he's like, no, man, I'm just gonna go tell the cops.
Yeah, because he was his cellmate or something. He was a guy he was in jail with, I believe. Yeah. And then he went to his mom or his grandma, was like, this guy wants me to kill his wife. I don't know what to do. And I think his mom was the one that went to the cops. Yeah, and was like, hey. So then they wired him up and then had him. What was his name? Tim LaBasis or something?
Tim LaBasis.
Yeah, the singer of As I Lay Dying. That whole mosh pit thing, when they fucking when they look like they're trying to start a fucking lawnmower, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or they're like picking up change. You know?
So weird.
Yeah, we'd kick guys out, or not like kick them out, but it's like, if you're putting your arms around, be like, hey, knock that shit off. Like, go because you got people getting fucking noses broke and they're just standing there, you know, like but I hate that.
If you don't want to come to the pit.
No, I know what I said. I was there, but let me contradict myself, God damn it. No, but it's for real, because like I don't know, man. It's just crazy. Like, because when we mosh, we just we call it slam dancing. You just
run into each other.
Yeah, shit like that. And if someone falls, you fucking pick them up. But I never understood the whole windmill thing. It's like, if you want to fight somebody, start a fight with somebody. What are you doing?
I think it's for people who listen to metal who have rhythm.
Yeah, like me.
We can dance, and so we put a little like jazz on our shit, you know.
Yeah,
you guys just run into each other like fucking rams,
like
300. What's up for you?
Yeah, I've seen the walls of death where they'll split a whole fucking crowd and make them run at each other and shit. It's pretty wild, man. I don't understand how people walk away from that kind of shit. So. You, speaking of fucking wild shit, you've done some pretty fucking wild things on the sides of stage and even on stage at metal shows and things like that, right? Like as I don't know the proper term, freak show, sideshow attraction. What do you call it?
We were a sideshow, but I also wanted to mention there was a time, and we didn't talk about this before, but in about 2001, 2002, in Portland, Oregon, there was a organization called Portland Organic Wrestling. And it was like basically a stage show that incorporated wrestling. And for like 2 years, it was the longest running punk rock show on the West Coast, or venue on the West Coast. And they unfortunately closed a few years back. But we used to run a show there where we'd get like 350 people that would show up and watch us, you know, basically put on a what do they call it, like deathmatch style wrestling show inside.
Yeah, with the thumbtacks and the barbed wire and fluorescent light bulbs and mouse
So-
traps and shit.
Right. So I used to do that back in 2001, 2002. I try to look for videos on YouTube, but obviously because of the year, you know, there was not cameras everywhere like there are today.
Right.
There was some VHS tapes floating around, but I wanted to send you some of it before, so I could show you, but unfortunately I don't have any.
So
Yeah,
so
we
like
used to do that.
so
But
in
go ahead.
go ahead, man. No, go ahead.
Quick funny story though is the very first time I wrestled there, I wrestled as a character called the Sodomizer, and this is it. I swear to God, this is a true story. I started wrestling there as the Sodomizer. After that, in between the first and second show, I went on a date with this girl, and we were walking through downtown Portland, and this guy across the street screams, "Sodomizer!"
Oh no.
At the top of his lungs.
She was terrified. Like, wait, what? How is this date gonna end?
I
Yeah.
ended up dating her for 3 years, so it didn't shake her. But the very next show, I went by Reverend Burl, the Minister of Pain, because I didn't want to be walking around town and everyone screaming sodomizer at me.
Getting accused of sodomy. Yeah, I get it.
In retrospect, it's actually a really good wrestling name, and I should have kept it.
It's okay. I don't think I would call myself.
I would have kept it. I
might not have ended up on WWE, but I would have been on ECW.
Oh, for sure. They would have
no
loved you
doubt.
on ECW or JCW, Juggalo Championship Wrestling. Have you ever seen that shit? I used to backyard wrestle. My name was 3D because my name's Darren Douglas Duncan. So this was like before I ever knew who the Dudley Boys were or any of that shit. We were just a bunch of kids in the backyard, but we definitely used like mousetrap tables and fluorescent light bulbs and barbed wire, like just best friends beating the shit out of each other. It was all scripted. We half-ass knew what we were doing, like, you know, what we were going to do and stuff. But man, it was some of the most fun I ever had in my life.
It really
Is it
was.
like that guy that he's on Facebook? He's got like a large following, and he's like a littler guy, and he's like
human something.
Yeah, he's like fuck
superhuman.
This
Yeah.
shit. And
he's like
jumps
this is
off
for the juggalos and the juggalettes.
Yeah, but he's like juggalos and juggawets. Yeah, dude. I wanted to send him my band merch. I want to send him my band merch so bad so we could jump out of a treehouse and land on fucking mousetraps wearing
like the shirt where he always takes it off.
Yeah,
like Legos. There was like some Legos and like fluorescent lights. I'm like, what the fuck is
Christmas
this?
tree ornaments and shit.
Yeah, barbed wire. And then he gets up like what the fuck do you expect, man?
Yeah, right, exactly.
The cool thing about doing that wrestling shit first was it actually got me set up to like mentally prepared to do the circus shit.
Benny said,
okay,
whoop,
so that's why you told that story. Yeah, whoop whoop, two scoops,
whoop, whoop. I forgot. Sorry.
So I'm glad you told that story because it makes sense. It's kind of getting you used to pain or whatever, you know, like getting in it because the whole thing is basically about pain tolerance, right? Yeah. Like, but what was it? A sideshow attraction, freak show? What you guys call it? I don't want to offend any of you guys and get my balls stapled to my kneecap.
I think we were mostly known as a sideshow. Most of the stuff we did was basically a sideshow that we incorporated suspension. I was a body piercer for about 21 years. I retired 5 years ago from body piercing. I started when I was 17. I actually went to a school in New York City called the Gauntlet, and which at the time was like the Harvard of piercing schools.
That sounds intriguing.
What's that?
Yeah, he said it sounds intriguing.
Yeah.
Well,
that's cool.
I mean, we're going to get to that point when we talk about the club kids because I was living in Manhattan at the time, piercing during the day, working at the club at night, you know, so it's coming. But
cool.
But no, so like it's basically like sideshow, but we incorporated suspensions into our show. And so we would perform, we would do bed of nails stuff and, you know, things like that. But to end the show, I would typically suspend a guy from his kneecaps or his rib cage or, you know, something like that. Everyone knows Crypticon in the horror community. Well, Seattle has our own Crypticon, and I actually suspended a guy from his rib cage right in the middle of Saturday afternoon during Crypticon out on the main floor with all the fucking guests around me.
Now it sounds painful, it looks
Sounds like it hurt.
painful, but from the people I know who've done it, they say it's actually kind of euphoric and like orgasmic. Like people have busted nuts doing this. Like,
Right.
can you explain like how the fuck and why the fuck do people put meat hooks in their skin to suspend themselves from the ceiling and fucking swing around? Like, why?
Well, so personally, I've never actually suspended. I've suspended people. I've
Right.
never done it because it's not something I feel I want to do in my life.
Yeah, me either.
I
I
got
don't blame you.
certification, I've got piercings, I've got, you know what I mean? I got all that other shit. It's just not something I want to do. My wife has done it, and she said that it kind of, once you get over the mental block of your feet leaving the ground, but like being pulled up that way, there is a very euphoric feeling, like your body just kind of releases an endorphin that just makes you very relaxed. And a
You're
lot of times
weightless.
they'll start swinging back and forth on
Yeah.
the cables and shit. And I mean, it looks, everyone I've ever suspended, yes, I've had people that freaked out and didn't want to do it, but most people look like they are having the absolute time of their life. Just not something my fat ass wants to get up and do.
Yeah,
Me
I don't
either.
even like getting a fish hook in my finger, better alone a big ass hook in my freaking spine.
So let me tell you this. In the circus that we were in, there was a guy named James, and he was one of the performers with us. And James had one of the toughest jobs in the military I could think of, and it was collecting dead soldiers.
Bodies.
Yeah, like
parts.
a mortuary affairs specialist.
Right. And
What they call it.
you could tell it definitely weighed on him, you know what I mean? But he
Yeah.
was a fucking guy, man. Like he was one of the, if you wanted to party, he's the guy that you go party with for sure. And he told me one year for his birthday, he goes, "Hey man, I want to suspend under the Space Needle by my ass cheeks." And I'm like, done, dude. Done. Fucking done.
Come on over.
Done as in you retired, or done as in like I'm fucking down? I don't understand.
Wait, what's that?
Done as in like I'm
We're doing
retired
it.
from doing this, I'm never
No,
doing
no,
it
no,
again,
no,
or
we're
done
doing
as in
it.
like we should have
Yeah.
did this yesterday.
Right.
I'd say he's ready to do it.
So he's like, for my birthday, I want to hang from my ass cheeks.
From his
And
ass cheek.
I'm pretty
Okay.
sure if we're Facebook friends, you can go to my Facebook and there's pictures of it.
Now, do you go through just like the 7 layers of skin, or are you hooking meat or what?
On him, on that one, because it was only 2 hooks, one in each ass cheek, and he didn't have a whole lot of ass to, like, you know, really get in there.
The this is coming from a guy called the sodomizer,
Sodomizer.
by the way.
It all makes
and the funny
sense.
thing, he was wearing a shirt that, like, that on the back, it said, "Your ass is mine."
Oh no.
Yeah.
You
But
should
so
have
we
been the
didn't-
one wearing that shirt.
We didn't do it exactly under the Space Needle. Right next door is one of the oldest punk rock clubs in the Pacific Northwest. It's called the Fun House. It's where like Nirvana and Pearl Jam and shit really got their start. Like one of the smaller clubs, right? And
Okay.
they're pretty much like a stone's throw away from the Space Needle. So all the photographs are like, looks like it's coming from the Space Needle, but we're actually like 2 blocks away. But we got to do it in the Funhouse bar, like outside in their open patio area, and I suspended him from his butt cheeks. There's a lot of really fun pictures, like on my Facebook, I'm sure, that you can see.
So this is probably a stupid question, but like, do these people develop scar tissue? Because like when you pierce with a hollow needle, and there's significant scar tissue from that, but like, what about these people that suspend? That's got to scar up, right?
Well, it does scar up. There's ways to, like, you know, minimize scarring using vitamin E, like the gel tabs of vitamin E, pop them open, get them on there as you're healing. It'll help with the scar tissue. But
Okay.
because of the way your back is, there's a lot of different positions that you can use in just your back. And a lot of people will do stuff where they'll go from their chest, you know, their inner thighs. And so typically the one in the back will be like your first time you go up. Usually that's like that's the nostril piercing of suspensions, you know what I mean? Everyone's had one. Maybe not Audi, but
Yeah.
but you know what I mean, like that. So typically once you don't, you know, they don't suspend so much that it becomes that big of an issue.
So would it be possible if I was to be suspended from my taint? Is that like feasible?
With a
Is there
hook,
like a
I mean,
tube?
I don't think that, I think that would interfere with like baby making stuff.
I'm done
Yeah.
with that. I got 2 kids, so like,
This is a free vasectomy.
yeah.
If you hang
Hey,
from your
so
dick,
real,
I hear they
so
turn your foreskin into an 8 skin.
so real quick, I got a funny story. We're talking about piercings. So my wife and I, we were in Atlanta. I think it was called Cheetahs. It was an all nude strip club, and I've never been to an all nude strip club. I've always been to the ones a typical strip club with, you couldn't drink in there, so like you can't drink in all nude strip clubs, which I understand. I get it.
Right.
So we're at our own little table. The black lights are going, and it was this black female, beautiful. I mean, she was she was a stripper for a reason, and she comes to their table, and the way the tables were made were made for them to like dance around on the table. It was like these big reinforced tables. So uh as we're going along, uh the black light, is shining down, and she bends over and she's like clapping her stuff. This is all nude, so it's like you know what I'm saying? So I was like,
Yeah, we know.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? So
Right.
I'm sitting there and like my face is telling everything. I'm not even saying anything to her, and I'm just like, and I look over at Brittany, I was like, is that toilet paper in her ass?
Like a
And
dingleberry.
and I guess she heard, but Brittany being so blunt, she's like, ma'am, you got toilet paper in your asshole. And I was like, oh, my God, I didn't. And then she's like, oh no, honey. And she bends over again. It was like, pluck, pluck, pluck. She grabs and like opens, and it's pierced, dude. Like her butthole was pierced with like this white barb, like double bar, like butthole barb, taint, gooch, vagina
That is
hole.
insane.
I was like, and obviously I'm intrigued, so I'm like trying to get closer. I'm like, wow, this is kind of cool. And I was like, and obviously I hit her with the questions. Did it hurt? How do you wipe your ass? I'm just going off, and she was like taking it like a champ. She's like, oh, it's this, and this, and this. I'm just like, I looked at Brittany. I was like, we gotta get out of here.
Yeah, I get a hood piercing. Like that's
Dude,
I understand
an
that,
asshole
but
piercing, dude. I've never seen that in my life. It's the
When you
craziest shit
first
ever.
when you first started explaining it, I immediately thought of the movie Teeth.
Right?
like,
I've
I was
never
like,
seen that.
oh my god,
You're missing out, dude.
dude.
The greatest
It's
horror movie,
so
way better than Scream, dude. Like,
I was just
dude.
gonna say I'm missing out, but this is coming from the guy who likes Halloween 3, so I don't trust your judgment on horror movies.
Hey, I have a good taste in horror. I'm sorry you don't. It's whatever.
Yeah. Never mind. I'm gonna stop with the whole you were attracted to a girl with a butthole piercing. I'm
Hey,
not
if you
going
saw it in
anywhere.
real life, you would have been like trying to like pick it out for her. Like I was almost to the point where I'm about to pick this girl's toilet
I don't
paper out
know.
of her butthole. This is the way I am.
How dare you?
I don't know, but man, that is just absurd. So what's tell me some crazy fucking horror stories
what's
from
some
being a sideshow artist, Vlad.
So real
I
quick,
mean,
real quick,
we know
Darren.
we got the main event that we're gonna get to
Sure.
about your piercing mishap.
Oh god.
Just,
One more question.
all right.
So is it good money, like sideshow stuff? Like is it
Absolutely not.
legit? No? Okay.
No, I mean we weren't our biggest show we did was the one we were supposed to do was the exotic erotic ball, which was like 30,000 people, and we ended up doing that was canceled. It was in San Francisco, and we drove all the way down there, but we ended up doing a show for like 2,000 people, which was pretty awesome. Then we did the it's a New Year's rave in Seattle. I can't think of the name right now, but that was like another, I think that was 10,000 venue. So we performed in front of like some big shows. I think for that 10,000 venue one, I got like $125. Typically it was a couple of drink tickets, and like if you go to the ER, like we'll buy your Percocets afterwards. You know what I mean? Like,
Wow.
Yeah.
they were like
Like
a
a
free
good
meal.
show.
I've seen some wild shit at shows, man, when they get them sideshow guys in. Like I know a lot of it's training, like sword swallowing, and like I've seen the nail in the nose. Like anyone could really do that if you work your body and train your body. But I've seen dudes like staple his nutsack to his wife's tit, like through $100 bill, and like there's no preparation for that. You just you squeeze the trigger and hope for the best.
That's jackass shit, man.
It's insane to me.
No, listen. You know those like wall hooks that you would hang your bike on?
Yeah.
We had a guy that would take 2 of those that had a chain link that was holding a cinder block, and he would put them like in his eyelid right here, right, and pull that fucking cinder block off the ground. And 2 guys would take sledgehammers and hit either side of that cinder block and break the cinder block while it was hanging from his eye socket.
I've seen people lift buckets of sand with their eyelids, but I ain't never seen them fucking beat a goddamn brick hanging from it with a sledgehammer.
I believe he broke his eye socket. I know once, but I think twice doing that trick.
For $125. Like,
and some Percocets.
Hey,
yeah,
you know,
Percocets too.
YouTube fame, man. You know,
Hey, man, Percocets go for a lot on the street, so he probably got way more money out of the Percocets than he did the fucking the monetary gain. But I mean, at that point, you kind of need the pills. You can't really sell them on the streets.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would do one where I would drop trow and I would take like a porcelain dinner plate, put it in front of my junk, and a guy would take an axe and break the plate over my.
Man, y'all must be tight. Y'all must be some close ass friends, and like, because I love both of you to death, but I ain't gonna let either one of you get near my junk. You know what I'm saying?
One of
especially with a fucking axe. Like, what the fuck are you guys
ones
doing with your lives?
I would lay on a big bed of nails, and we'd put like 5 porcelain plates on me, and the guy would climb a ladder and drop a bowling ball, and it would smash all the plates while I was laying on the bed of nails.
That is crazy.
So how I met Angela was I was performing in the circus. The reason I got brought on was because I was a piercer, so I could do the suspensions. Originally, I wasn't supposed to be in the show, but I kind of just weaseled my way into the show pretty much. But Angela was what was called a grinder girl, and so she wore a leather bikini that had metal plates over the boobies and the chocha and the bunghole. And then she'd have like these little metal plates here, and so she would take a little angle grinder or whatever and be like busting sparks off her titties and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's really cool. I didn't see her do it, but I've seen it done before. You know.
Yeah.
That's how I met her. That's what she started doing, and so we got cool pictures from like the first year we met, where she's like standing on my face and it's in a pile of broken glass, or I'm laying on a there's a really cool picture where I'm laying on a bed of nails and she's standing on top of me with her arms in the air like she just won the goddamn Olympics. And then the whole roof of this club was skateboards, like it was wallpapered like actual skateboards drilled into the roof. So it's a really cool like visual of like me, you know what I mean, getting stomped out by her and then all the skateboard decks and stuff.
See, that's the Christmas card I want, and nobody fucking sends me shit like that in the mail. That's the save the date thing that I want to see is your face in a pile of broken glass and your wife standing on your fucking ear.
You have a hair sample?
Yeah, I do. I got a sample of his wife's hair, Audie.
So
fucking awesome.
So
I'm
like I could
right now.
Like I could do all that with like just Photoshop, man. It's Photoshop like kill the industry, like like everything else
killed the sideshow star. I think that's a song.
So I just come up with a great idea. I'm gonna do some Photoshopping. I'm gonna be hanging for some shit. Just wait. I'm gonna post some pictures. I'm gonna show you. But you know what I'm saying? Like stuff like that. Like here you are doing all these crazy fucking pictures, and like at the time it was like, yo, this is real. But then you got those assholes that could easily Photoshop that. It's like, I mean, you can see it and be like, yeah, they're taking away from it. But if you're not really there, then
it kind of loses. Yeah, like if you're not, I mean, but that's really anything, the experience of being there. For me and her was being there performing.
Yeah.
But there's people that were at the show that have that memory of it too.
Yeah.
And it's just like a cool photo of that her and I get to share from something cool we did.
Right.
That we had professional photographers that like really were into the art.
Yeah, it's obviously not Photoshop. More or less, I was just painting a picture with just people being assholes and. Yeah, like me, sure. I would Photoshop me hanging from my taint, just to be an asshole.
There are people out there who fake it, right? Like, because I've been to a place before and I saw a married couple do the sideshow thing, and like she was a pretty big gal and she's just stomping and jumping on broken glass, and I'm like, there's no way that's broken glass. Like she would be fucked up. Like but it had a sound. I'm thinking it was like those clear gemstones that you can buy that you put in a pot that you grow a plant in. You know what I mean? Like I know that there's got to be tricks of the trade, certain things you can do.
Like, for instance, one of the tricks we did that was pretty simple, and if you think about it, it makes absolute sense, is we would get a 10-foot rebar, and the grinder girl would kind of grind down the end, but we would sit it right here in our throat, right? And then another guy down on the other end would put it in his throat. And then we sit there and we bend it with our throats. Well, a 2-foot rebar, you can't bend that. A 10-foot rebar you can bend, but as the girl's hitting it with the metal sparks are coming off of it while you're bending it and shit. It's more of the illusion, right?
Yeah, it's fucking cool to see, man.
Right. And like, so for instance, one of the tricks we'll talk about is my dick ripping story.
Yeah. I'm ready when you are, dude.
The trick to that, so the trick to this one, right? I had a Prince Albert piercing and I had it for probably 20 years. I don't know, but it was a 2-gauge. And I wore.
Hold on, before we say that, the Prince Albert, there's multiple dick piercings, like a Jacob's ladder, where they got barbells that go up the top of the shaft.
When I was a piercer, I did a Jacob's ladder on a UFC fighter.
You did
like
what?
Straight through the head type
I did a Jacob's ladder on a UFC fighter.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, his name was.
You know what sucks? We went up 8% in the last couple days on women listeners. I can't wait to see the percentage after this fucking episode. So thank you all ladies who watch and listen. But anyway, so Prince Albert, explain that exactly for those that don't know, that aren't familiar with dick piercings. There's really no nice way to say it.
When you show us on the screen, use the small finger.
Actually, hold on. I just got something in the mail today that I think
boy.
Okay. So this is a Malcolm McDowell nose piece.
Orange.
Oh, cool. The mask. Yeah. I've never seen one of those. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I got it yesterday.
Did you buy that?
So there's a guy named the Angry Unboxing Nerd, Mike Tapp, and he's been a collector for a long, long time. And he did like a box. Like if you gave him so much money, you're guaranteed more value in your box than what you paid. This was one of the items I got.
Where does that mask come from besides him? Like, is that a Trick or Treat Studios thing, or what's the
Danny
story?
Elfman pop?
Oh wow, that's cool.
But
I've never seen a mask like that from the Clockwork Orange. I did not know they existed. Now I know what I'm gonna get Malcolm McDowell to autograph that. That's amazing. Yeah. So let's get back on the Prince Albert piercing. Show us how this works.
You have a urethra here, which is the pee hole.
The pee hole.
Right. Well, back here, after it's been circumcised, back here underneath the head, there's a little sweet spot before the shaft, right?
Oh, I'm familiar with it.
So the piercing goes in through the urethra and then comes out through that little sweet spot in the bottom. And it's typically like a ring or a little barbell, so you have a little ball.
So when you piss, is it like a shower head? Like,
like do you sit to pee because it's going everywhere?
And if you hold it right, you can go like
like a fucking sprinkler. Does it really do that or no?
If you try hard enough.
So your piss actually comes out like that. It'll hit the jewelry and fucking spray.
Okay, well, since my accident, I am unless in public, I sit to pee. Make your joke now, you assholes.
No. I ain't gonna make fun of that.
Oh, you're quite a manly man. I'm not gonna make fun of you for sitting down to piss.
You've had your dick pierced. I'm not about to compare each other's fucking dicks. I was like,
it's simply because I don't want to clean up the mess. If you thought boys had a hard time peeing in the toilet before a dick rip, once you have a dick rip, because the way it healed is like, when you take a hot dog and you microwave it for like 30 seconds too long
and it splits,
that split in the end. That's what it looks like now. But it kind of makes the head of my dick look a little bit bigger too, so I'm not bummed about it.
Oh yeah, I bet. So what's the scar tissue like? The sensation, is it still kind of sweet to have it, touched or whatever?
So
I'm trying not to be too graphic because I don't want to scare away the listeners, but I gotta know, man.
Big rip. I love on the bottom. So actually, when you're circumcised, right? And I'm gonna get kind of scientific on you guys right now, but when you're circumcised, because you no longer have that protective layer of skin over the head, it gets desensitized from like rubbing on your jeans and just every day banging it around, right? So it
Right.
gets desensitized. They say like 80% compared to someone who hasn't been circumcised.
Wow.
Well, when you get older, if you get a Prince Albert piercing because of the location, it opens up nerve endings that have been pretty much shut off your whole adult life. So it brings back sensation that you lost because you were circumcised, or circumcised.
So is that typically why people get the Prince Albert piercing?
Right. It's to bring back sensitivity, but then it also kind of acts as like a French tickler for, your partner.
For the lady. Okay.
Right.
Wow.
But
Because I know why, like, you get an eyebrow piercing or a septum piercing because it looks cool, but you don't really walk around with your dick hanging out. So I always wondered why people get their dick pierced. Depends what profession you're in, I suppose.
the other thing is too is actually the how I ripped it out and everything
Yeah.
is an actual, even if you didn't have a Prince Albert piercing, there's a medical procedure you can get called a meotomy. And what it is it's a lengthening of your urethra.
Is that when you're sick of having your Prince Albert and you're like, you got to get this me out of me, get this out of me? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Typically, it's when you have a small urethra. It's like a lengthening of it, so it makes it easier, like less painful for guys to pee.
Okay.
But it's also an elective surgery you can have done to get back sensitivity. So basically, what I did by tearing it out was making it 70 times more sensitive. So it's a lot more pleasurable. And like I said, that little tear makes the head just a wee bit bigger.
That's awesome. So you literally have a swollen member then at this point.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's
But
fucking sweet.
I don't know if I told you this or not, but the cool thing is, have you ever heard of the show Portlandia?
I've heard of it, but I've never watched it.
So if you watch the first 5 minutes of Portlandia, they actually talk about me ripping my dick out. And
really?
So the show that we were performing at, there's a punk band. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're called Poison Idea. And they're kind of like a gutter punk band. They've been around for like 35 years. They're from Portland. And they're very big in like the Portland, like, or not the Portland, but in like the kind of like gutter punk scene. Like they're like very, very old, well-known band. And they only perform once a year now, and it's on New Year's Eve, and it's in Portland. And so we were their opening act. And so this is kind of like a big deal in Portland in the punk rock scene, was to be at this show. Well, we opened the show, and that's where I did my trick where I tore my Prince Albert out. And I'd say about 8 months later, the show comes on Netflix, and my phone blows up. They're like, dude, you got to go watch Portlandia. I'm like, what's up? They're like, they talk about you. I'm like, what? And he's like, another text, go watch Portlandia. They talk about you. I'm like, what the hell? So I go home, turn it on, and they talk about a guy picking up a car battery with his dick and tearing it out. And they say the Jim Rose Sideshow Circus, but it was actually us. So I don't know why they used the name, but they actually said Jim Rose when it was actually us. But
Is that a real sideshow company? The Jim Rose one? It is?
Right.
Okay.
But there was writers at our show. So
right.
But yeah,
so this is season 1, episode 1. It's right when the fucking whole
they're walking through Portland, and the guy is explaining to the girl how weird Portland is and the weird things you'll see and how kooky it is or whatever. And he's like, yeah, you might see a guy, pick up a car battery with his dick. Like, you know what I mean? Fred Armisen.
So I got to ask this, Vlad. Was it an Interstate battery or like an Everstart Die Hard?
It was a Die Hard for sure. I had to go.
Because I was about to say, if it was Interstate, you probably could have got a little bit of endorsement. Like I think Bobby Labonte was the one of the Interstate NASCAR drivers.
They would just put like a bloody cup on the hood of their car, or
no, it would just be like
hey, who knows?
It would be like Prince Albert and a blown out dick. I don't know.
No,
you could have made a lot of money off that, dude. I'd have been like, "Where's my royalty check, bitch?"
Yeah, no shit. There's one thing I want to say, and then there's a question I want to ask. One, you talk about how weird Portland is. Everyone I know that's been to Portland's lived in Portland say it's fucking full of some strange individuals. I was watching a cartoon with my son. I think it was Superhero Squad. It's about Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, all the Marvel characters, but they're kind of like little kids. But anyway, they're all like standing around at a bus stop, and this old lady gets off the bus and sees Iron Man and all these guys hanging out. And she's like, it's worse than Portland. Like, I was like, what the fuck?
I've heard it. I've heard that
People
before.
just dress up like it's a fucking weird town or what?
There's this dude, and he was a part of that same wrestling show that we were on, and he wore like Coke bottle glasses that were like probably from the 60s. He still wore them in early 2000s. He was bald, but like had super long hair on the sides, and it was always like super greasy long. And he kind of had that Joey Ramone kind of posture. And he dressed in an Elvis outfit and walked around town with a ukulele, couldn't play a lick. And he was just like the town dude. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
But it's a whole town of people like that.
Right. That
They're
makes
just
sense.
weird and quirky, and it's such a weird place to be. I don't even know how to. You really feel like you're on like you ate mushrooms and like popped into some weird little dream or something.
What is it about that town that makes all the weirdos of the world congregate there? Like, what's the fuck? What is it?
I think so the Pacific Northwest was actually like founded. I mean, it was founded before the 60s, right? Like I'm not dumb. I understand that part of it. But a lot of people in the late 60s and 70s settled here because it was a very liberal place. They wanted to open like, forests to build their farms and grow their weed, and you know what I mean? So a lot of like weirdos from the 60s and 70s all like drove their Volkswagen vans up here and then pitched tent, and it's like they've just been eating drugs ever since.
Right, and they're breeding, and now their kids are fucking weirdos.
So it's like some hills have eyes
Piercing their
shit,
dick. Yeah, right.
It's like Portland hills have eyes. It's like right here.
You know that band Heart?
Yeah.
So the chick with black hair from Heart, she like lives right up the road, and her daughter, I know her. I've seen her daughter. I've met her a few times. That girl is absolutely out of her damn mind.
Really?
And I'm like, I'm thinking like Heart, right? Like they were huge in like the early 80s, so they were partying with like Motley Crue and shit. Like, yeah, that girl's twisted. You know what I mean? Like, that's how Portland, or that's how it is up here. Especially like considering like the grunge, like what's his name? Kurt Cobain's from like half an hour from my front door. You know what I mean? Like where he was born and shit. So it's like a very kind of depressed, drug-induced area of the country. It's always raining here, man. Like
I've heard that the depression comes because it's always raining, and like one of the highest like cities with suicide rate or whatever is like Seattle. Like, so many people kill themselves in Seattle, and they say because it's always fucking raining, and people are just bummed out.
It's gray out. You know what I mean? Like you get 2 months of sunshine, and like other than that, it's like gray or raining.
So that's a real thing. It's not a stereotype. That's how it is, huh? That's wild.
I mean, it beats you down after a while. I mean, imagine like you're the worst, snowstorm lasting 10 months.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like it starts to beat you down after a while when you can't go out and get the vitamin D from the sun, and you know what I mean? But when it is summer here, when we do get those 2 months, we live in a forest that has like beautiful blue lakes and salmon swimming around. You can pick them up out of the water, and it's gorgeous for 2 months, but after that you're fucked.
2 months?
So let's get back on this pee-pee Pearson ripping story here. So first of all, the one thing that I already said what I wanted to say about Portland and the superhero cartoon. My question was, why do they call it a Prince Albert? Do you know? Was there a story behind that?
I think the original story that I heard was that the origin of the piercing was that Prince Albert had a little dick, and that at the time they wore these like tight. I know that wasn't spandex, but there was like kind of like a tight spandex white jean and tucked in a brown boot, tall brown boot was like the men's fashion, and so he didn't want to come off like smaller than the rest. If there's truth to that, I don't know. But that's supposedly where that came from.
Okay. Now walk me through this. There's a battery on the floor, a ring in your dick. You got to take a chain. What do you use? Chain, rope? What is it?
Yeah. So basically,
and you hook your dick piercing up to this battery, and you just it's a short chain, and you just kind of stand up, or what?
The chain. No, I could probably stand up with just the chain hooked, and it wouldn't pull the battery off the ground. So what I normally did is I have, those little metal like little step stools, and they kind of fold. They're like that,
Yeah.
But they were like 2 feet, 3, 2.5 feet off the ground. So
Right.
I'd come up on that, put it over, kind of pick myself up, and then pull it up off the ground and swing it back and forth.
Dumb question. Does it hurt? Do you have to condition yourself to get better at this? Because I'm sure that wasn't your first time doing it, right?
The first time I did it was right before a show. And basically the guy Noel, who it was his show, he like ran the show. Because I was just doing the piercings and sometimes, doing these little bit parts, I wanted something of my own that I could do. And so I went up to him and I was like, hey man, I think I can do this. And he's like, I'll tell you what, if you can go do it in front of all of us right now, I'll let you do it tonight in the show. So never done it before. Went up, hooked a carabiner onto it, because we used the car battery for other tricks. So it's not like we just randomly had a car battery laying around. We used it for other
Right.
tricks.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
But so I took the carabiner and clipped it to my dick, and I like just stood up, picked it, a foot, 8 inches off the ground, swung it back and forth a few times, and everyone's lost their minds. They're like, wow, you know what I mean? Like freaking out. My dick that's this big was about this long.
I was gonna say it's gotta stretch the fuck
Oh
out.
yeah.
It's all skinny and long and like
It was
it's
cool
gotta
because it went from short and stout to long and skinny. I just wish it would have went long and stout, you know what I mean?
right.
but yeah, so I did it for them real quick, and this is at a club in Seattle called Chop Suey. And so I picked it up and I did it for them real quick, set it down, unclipped it, and they're like everyone was losing it. And so that night I did it in the show, and they were like, you have to do it every time now. And it was like, it was uncomfortable. Like I definitely felt the weight tugging on it, but not to a point where I thought I was going to rip it or like tear the piercing out. And so I'd done the trick a bunch of times, but this one show, like I said, we were performing down in Portland and we lived in Seattle, and that stand that I would normally do the trick on, someone left in Seattle. So when we got there, when we realized we didn't have it, we had the bed of nails, which is, a much, much higher off the ground. And so I was like, all right, I'll stand up on the bed of nails, pick up the thing, do it, and then boom, we're done. Well, I get up, I'm on the bed of nails. They put the battery on the bed of nails, and I clipped it, put it over the edge, and started swinging it back and forth. This is where I fucked up. I fucked up. So instead of just grabbing the chain and putting it back on the bed of nails and just unclipping it, you know what I mean? That for whatever reason, that didn't occur to me. I grabbed the chain in my hand. I think it was one-handed actually. Grabbed the chain in my hand and jumped down off the bed of nails.
Oh no.
When my feet hit the ground, the chain went through my hand and pulled the jewelry right out with it.
Did you faint?
There's actual video of all of this.
I'd have fainted.
And I'm trying to get my hands on a copy currently.
I'll be back, guys. Keep talking amongst yourselves.
Right on. And so in the video, it literally showed, because I had my boxers on, and it showed my dick like snake its way back into my boxers. And yeah, and it was like snakes back into my boxers, and it like freaked me out, right? Because at first it didn't occur to me. I'm like, how come that's no longer? I didn't think about it ripping out. And then I barely looked at it, stuffed it in my pants, and zipped up my pants. And the MC, looks over at me and he goes, "Hey man, are you all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'm good." He's like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And at that point, I was supposed to go back and start putting the needles in my buddy to put the hooks in them to go finish the show. So I get back there. He runs back and he's like, "Hey man, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, let's sit down. I'm like, let's get these hooks in you." And so he sits down, and you have to massage where you're going to put the hook in, to separate the skin from the fat layer, So I'm like kind of massaging him, and I lean back and I hit my head on the wall, and he like flips around. He's like, "Dude, are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'm fine. Started doing it again, and boom, I hit my head on the wall. And he's like, "Dude, you are not putting needles in me right now." He's like, "You need to go to the hospital." Yeah. So I'm like, "All right, man, whatever." So we took a bunch of like paper towels and like wrapped it up. They put me in my buddy's car who lived in Portland, and we went to I don't remember, it's in southeast Portland somewhere. We went to the hospital. We get to the hospital, and they bring me in, and this is, so now keep in mind, this is like 11 o'clock on New Year's Eve. They bring me into the hospital, and the nurse is like, "What's wrong with him?" They're like, "He had a circus accident. A car battery tore his dick in half." And the girl's like, "Oh my god!" And like seriously, the whole time I'm sitting there, my pain level, I don't know if it was out of shock or anything, but really I was maybe at a 1-2. Like it hurt, but like not, I had headaches that were worse. You know what I mean? So I was like, I wasn't freaking out, but everyone else was freaking out around me. And so she rushes me back. There's people out there like arms broken in half and shit. And she like rushes me back. So she gets me back there, and this I shit you not, this male nurse comes in. I gotta take my hat off for this. This male nurse comes in, and he walks in. He's like, "Show it to me." I had it like zipped up and wrapped up. I'm like, "This is your job, man. Like,
why are you scaring me?"
So I unwrap it, and he looks at it, and he's like, "Oh my god!" Like freaking out again. You know, like, "Oh shit."
Yeah, your
And
typical
like,
ER employee has seen some shit, and for that, I mean, I guess, yeah, they probably got PTSD from that. Thanks a lot,
like,
Vlad.
Why did you send me a male nurse?
Right.
That's
yeah, that's even worse because a man is just going to sit there and try to imagine what you're going through right now and just be fucking traumatized for it.
So I unwrap it. He looks at it, and he's like, "Let me get you some pain meds." So he immediately comes back and shoots me up with Dilaudid. I don't know if either of you have been on Dilaudid, but it's my favorite drug in the hospital. It's immediate relaxation.
Right.
But so he shoots me up with Dilaudid, and I'm like, okay, I'm like trying to relax. They go, and there's several doctors that look at it, and finally they come in like 12:30 or so, and they're like, "Look, you need surgery, and we can't do surgery till tomorrow. So we're going to keep you comfortable all night. There's somebody's going to come in, and they're going to give you the Dilaudid, and if you need a Percocet, we'll give you a Percocet." And I'm like, okay. So I'm sitting there. I'm like, it's New Year's Eve. I'm stuck in the emergency room. I'm going to have a good time. Like, fuck this, right? I was all by myself. I'm having a good time. So the lady comes in, hits me with a Dilaudid, comes back an hour later, like, "You need a Percocet? What's your pain level at?" 9. Throw me a Percocet since you would leave. Come back a little bit later, hit me with the Dilaudid. Come back a little, what's your pain level at? 9. There was one point I was dead ass asleep. She woke me up and asked me what my pain level was at. I told her it was an 8. She hit me with the Dilaudid, and I went back to bed.
Man.
My mentality is I'm in the emergency room. They're not going to let me OD. So I might as well like see have as much
far
fun
you could take it.
So I was partying with the chicks the whole time, like the nurses and stuff. I'm all like, you know what I mean, high as shit, talking shit, fucking having a fucking. Everybody wanted to come in and talk to me about the accident.
Meanwhile, you got an open wound because you had to wait for a surgeon to come in, so your dick's just split. I mean,
remember those?
God damn! Did they give you a catheter? Like, how would you have to piss? What the fuck?
That didn't come till the morning. Imagine if you took like, remember those firecrackers, lady fingers?
Yeah.
You put one of those in the tip. That's kind of what it looked like. Pow! And then so I got 20 stitches and a catheter in the morning that put me into surgery. They knocked me out for it. 20 stitches, 10 on the inside, 10 on the outside, and a catheter, right? So they wrapped me up, you know what I mean, with the catheter on me. I actually did a photo shoot with the catheter out, which was pretty fun. But I was riding like a lowrider bicycle, and I was wearing an Eddie Munster shirt. It was fucking dope.
That sounds amazing.
I'll show you some pictures. But so they
should post that up for our Patreon. If you're okay with this, I'd love to put this kind of stuff on for our Patreon subscribers.
Oh yeah, I got a bunch of pictures from that photo shoot. I got one, you know, those little wooden box cars. I'm like sitting all gangster in a box car with my foot out. You can see a big pee bag on my ankle.
Why is none of this on an album cover? What the fuck? Like, somebody hire this man and pay for these pictures just so I can see him on the cover of a fucking CD.
But so the next day they released me from the hospital, and they're like, "Look, we're going to shoot you with Dilaudid one more time, and we're going to give you a prescription of Percocet to take home with you." So I'm like, okay, cool. So I walk out, fill my prescription, and the whole time I was I'm a big like clothes nerd. I love buying clothes, like brand new clothes.
Okay.
It's my passion. And I was trying to convince everyone, like, we're in Portland, we need to go shopping while we're here. And they're like, "Dude, you just ripped your dick in half. You have 20 stitches in your dick. We're going home." And I'm like, no, let's go shopping. And they're like, "No, we're not going shopping." So
Hot
finally,
Topic's got a new sale out.
there's a new
I need-
Hardy Boys sleeve I need to get.
Yeah, I need to go to Eric Comrie and Finch.
But so they're finally
Don't
like,
insult this man like that, Audie. You don't shop at Abercrombie and Fitch.
I'm just saying the dude,
As
like,
high as he was
I-
on Percocet, he
that's what
might have.
that's what I'm saying. Like, this dude's on perks, dick's ripped. Like, let
we
this
can
man
him
go
shop
wherever
at
the fuck
American
he
Eagle
wants.
Outfitter this
If this
time.
man wants to go to fucking, I don't know, Spencer's or something, let this man go.
Yeah, let him do what he wants. He's like one of those Make-A-Wish kids. His fucking dick ripped in half. Take him to Disneyland or something.
Our doctor go, oh shit.
Yeah, no shit.
But the next, so they convinced me not to go shopping, and we're driving home on I-5, like going back to Seattle, and I make them pull over so I could puke. So every car that's going, I'm like, "Whoa!" And every car that's going by is honking their horn at me because it's New Year's Day. So they all think I'm hungover, and I'm like, no, you have no idea how bad this really is. I'm dying over here. You know what I mean? But they're all like, boo, boo, boo. I'm like, no, I'm not. That's not it.
Right.
And but the worst part is, so when I left the hospital, they were like, yo, we wrapped it up. Don't touch it for 2 weeks. Come back in. We're going to take the catheter out, check the stitches, boom, boom, boom. So I'm like, all right, cool. Leave it alone for 2 weeks. So like 5 days in, man, I'm in so much pain. I can't stand up straight without it feeling like it's ripping all over again. Like it was like I was in a bad, bad way. And then my old lady's like, you need to go back to the hospital. Like, this isn't right. You can't go another week and a half like this. So I go back in, and the lady's like, dude, you were supposed to clean that with this and see something, blah, blah. I'm like, this is what they told me when I left. And so they had to like take everything off, and all the stitches had like pulled apart at that point.
Oh
and
my God, dude.
They're like basically like, look, we can try to do this all again, or you can just go the rest of your life like this. I'm like, I'll just go. It's fine. I got an ear torn out. Like my dick's no different.
I just want to point out that you have a combat veteran cringing right now. Like, this man has seen some shit.
Dude,
And
like, I'm like giggling with my butthole right now.
right. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, dude.
Fuck
Like,
that.
there's no like getting kicked in the balls is the worst thing a man could ever like experience. Better alone getting your head, like the most sensitive spot, just blown out like a split tongue. Fuck that.
Yeah, if I had a choice to get kicked in the balls 25 times by a horse or get my dick ripped in half, who's got a horse? Line it up, baby.
Line that horse up.
Yeah, bring it.
I would say this. I would never fight Vlad ever, just for the simple fact this man has had his dick ripped.
What are you gonna do to him that's gonna hurt him? Like, oh, you're gonna break my nose, tough guy? I have my dick ripped in half.
One time when I did live in Portland, this guy made a really good point to me once, and it's something I've always kind of thought about. But I worked at this tattoo shop in downtown Portland, and one day I'm sitting outside, and he was like kind of like, no, he wasn't a small dude or nothing, but I was sitting outside, and he was standing in front of me, and the sun was like right behind him. And I looked up at him, I was like, hey man, I never noticed how many scars you have on your face. He's like, yeah, man, that's why I don't fight people like you. And I'm like, why is that? And he's like, look at your hands, all your scars are on your hands. And I'm like, and at the time, I was kind of young and pretty. So I was like, my face wasn't as beat up as it is now. So I got it. But I was like, look at my hands. I'm like, man, he's got a good point. Always check somebody's hands.
Yeah, because that's from teeth and eyebrows, man.
Yeah.
All them scars.
You just one up too, Vlad. Like, now you got like that gone. So it's like, yep.
I'm telling you, dude, it's my Bond. I'm becoming a Bond villain.
Slowly but surely.
When I finish my platinum teeth, you know what I mean? I got the scar on my face already,
Yeah, dude. I ain't fucking with you. I ain't getting into no fucking mosh pit with you.
I'm like the most like if any prison movie you've ever seen, like I would have been perfect as an extra on Sons of Anarchy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. For sure.
You try
That's
out
a great
as an extra,
point,
man.
What's that?
Yeah.
I said you should try out as an extra at least.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm sure they film
bro.
I'm sure they film movies out where you're at.
Anymore, but
yeah, but I'm sure there'd be
something
other movie.
like it.
Yeah. It always comes
out. Vikings. That would have been brutal.
Well, I'm sick of having sympathy pains where my penis is. So let's change the subject over to Club Kids, the main event of the night.
The Club Kids the musical. Can we sing all of our parts?
Anything to
Just
make
throw
me
some glitter
forget
on it and
about.
go dancing, honey.
Right. Oh my God. So before I get into my little description here of what the club kids are, why don't you give a brief rundown, Vlad, about just like how you knew them or how you were aware of them, and then I'll go into explain to everybody who doesn't know what they are, what the club kids are.
So where I lived in New Jersey in Toms River, Manhattan was like basically an hour and a half away. So Wednesday nights through Saturday nights, we would all basically go to New York and go to nightclubs, even though we were like 16, 17. If you knew the right people, you got into places. So my sister originally started going up to a place called Limelight, which is um, was a kind of like a techno club, dance club inside of like a 200-year-old Catholic church, looking very gothic, and it's and it's on 20th Street and 6th Avenue, right in Manhattan. So it's like this super old like castle looking church, and each room there was multiple rooms that had like uh whatever different types of techno, like gabber, or you know what I mean, like trance and things like that going on. There was famous DJs that would play there, like Kyoki, and you'd go in there one night and like literally see like Hell's Angels up in this corner of the club, Japanese Yakuza up in this corner of the club, and then a bunch of like circus freak looking people dancing in the middle, on you know what I mean.
That's so strange to me that they didn't have like problems. I'm sure that there were sometimes, but for all
Yeah,
these people to be in this building and get along, it's so strange.
it's I bounced in different clubs between New Jersey, Baltimore, Portland, and Seattle. Like I've bounced in like made big clubs, and where we were getting in fights of like like 11 dudes are fighting 10 dudes, and now 8 bouncers get involved, and now all of us are fighting in the streets. Like I've
Right.
been in fights like that, you know what I mean? And literally when I went to that club, like I know of issues that arose, but there was never fights. Nobody was
And
ever fighting
And
anybody.
you would think, especially with somebody like the Hells Angels being there, like there probably wouldn't be much of fights. It'd be guns and padlocks tied to the ends of bandanas, and like people are
Right.
getting hurt. And in situations like that, it's like it's hard to tell who your enemy is. I know some of them were big burly biker dudes, and the other guys are Asians, but it's like when you're involved in a situation like that, it's like everyone's your enemy because all you want to do is walk away and survive.
Right. Well, and
It's
I think
fucking wild.
just the energy of the club and the people that were there and the things that were happening in the club at the time were kept it from becoming like an angry or violent
Right.
atmosphere. You know what I mean? Like it even when someone I would see like people like freak out on drugs, there were people that were there to take care of them, and it was like squashed like really, really fast. They were taken care of, and there was no more issue. Like, because the biggest issue that club would have had, being that they sold drugs internally, would have been the police being there for a fight, or of someone high on drugs who couldn't control it, and the police or an ambulance were going to need to be called. Like that was their biggest, issue, was if that were to happen. So anytime that there was anything issue, like there was something small, it was dealt with so fast that no one knew it happened, and it was, everything just kept moving.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Um, So I'm gonna basically tell the listeners who the club kids were of my little script here. Sometimes I like to do scripts. I do my own little research, and I want you to feel free to butt in whenever. If I say something that reminds you of something and you want to elaborate on it, or if I
Cool.
say something when you're like, "Oh, actually, that's not true. This is what really happened." Please feel free to butt in. And this is basically I'm really excited to hear you talk about all these things because I only know about it from what I read on the internet and what I've seen in movies. And let's just have a conversation about the Club Kids. Cool?
Sure. I'm into it.
All right. So the Club Kids was a group of young New York City dance club personalities. They were popularized by Michael Alec, James St. James, and there's several other people in this group, but they were basically a very flamboyant and group of individuals, and they wore very extravagant costumes. In 1988, Michael Musto, he wrote about the Club Kids and said that they were, quote, terminally superficial, have dubious aesthetic values, and are master manipulators. Several of them had very long lasting contributions to mainstream art and fashion. And I was talking about this earlier about how you see your emo kids and heavy metal kids and like Marilyn Manson, he'd have like just stripes across his face or paint just his forehead black or things like that. And Marilyn Manson's even in the movie Party Monster.
Yeah, he is.
He's the truck driver, right? We're gonna get
Right.
into that too. So, former club kid Walter Cassidy, you know who he is, Wallpaper, right?
Wallpaper, yeah. He was a DJ that the club I hung out with a little bit.
Yeah. Um, Wallpaper said that the nightclub was like a laboratory, a place where you were rewarded for experimentation. And I think that's kind of cool that people could just come there and be just very extravagant individuals. You know, they celebrated individuality, and I thought that was pretty cool.
I was just gonna say that the people that were the most strange and the most unique were the most celebrated.
Right, yeah. There's he mentions that actually in the thing that I was reading about him. He was actually basically saying the same thing. That's fucking awesome, I think. So Michael Alec was kind of like the leader, I guess. Would you agree with that or no? Like
Yeah, I mean, he ran the most popular club on the most popular nights in New York in the 90s and the late 80s and 90s in New York City. He was the promoter, you know what I mean, for the biggest thing happening in New York City at the time.
Right. He came from he moved there in 1984. I think he's from South Bend, Indiana. And
Yeah,
he started hosting like small events. And so how accurate do you think the movie Party Monster is when he meets the character played by Seth Green? Who did Seth Green play in that movie? I forgot.
James St. James.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
So was James St. James really like jealous of him, how fast Michael took over? Because James St. James was kind of the man at first, right? And then Michael came in and kind of took it over, or is that true or no?
That's pretty much how it went. James St. James still, I mean, they were on a very similar plateau, I guess you could say, as far as like popularity and who knew them. Because Michael worked at, was the promoter for Disco 2000. He was like the number one guy, but he really became the number one guy by learning from James St. James. But in the club, like there was an outside world view of who was the top dog, and then there was the reality where Michael was the more flamboyant, in your face, personality, and James St. James was a little bit more reserved, but still swung the same amount of weight, if you will. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So later on, when it all started to kind of meet its own demises, would you agree that it was because Michael Alex started adding drug dealers to the roster of the club kids? And because like we all know, Michael later became plagued by drug use and everything. And
Right.
why do you think he was bringing in drug dealers into the club kids? Like, I don't.
Well, part of the nightclub scene, and that was real predominant with Limelight, was that when you went there, you would show up at 11, 12 o'clock at night, and then you would be there till 6 a.m. And then when they close at 6 a.m., you'd go to after hours until like noon, and then you would go have brunch. And once you were go to brunch, then you would go home and go to sleep. So that was like your day. You know what I mean?
Right.
But so a lot of times, in Limelight, there was there was always drugs in the New York like club scene, but once they started selling within the like people that worked at the club, when the club started providing the drugs, I think is where it became a problem, because then it was like more and more and more. There was nobody to kind of stop it. It was, you know what I mean? Typically,
Right.
there's outside influence selling drugs within your club, and you use your bouncers and security or whatever to kind of quash that. But when you're the club selling it, there's no one to stop you. Like, you can sell as much as you want. And so things like cocaine, where if I'm going to be up from 6 o'clock at night till noon the next day, a couple of bumps while I'm drinking, another bump of K, what I mean?
Cocaine will definitely help you stay up for 2-3 days if this is what you're trying to do. So, okay,
Exactly.
that makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure there was money to be made in the whole drug scene too, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Well, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
There was times like, honestly, I would go, this is before I started working there. I would go there, party the entire night. There was one time we were driving back from the club, and I had passed out in the car with my hand clutched. and we got pulled over by New Jersey State Troopers, and they kind of questioned everyone in the car. We were all like, 18, 19 years old. And the whole time I was awake, but I pretended I was passed out because I could feel in my hand I had a vial of something, a bag of something, and like a nugget of weed, which in the 90s was a bad thing.
Right.
Like clutched in my hand. And fortunately, we drove off. Well, once we drove off and I opened my hand, I had a 50 vial of Special K and a 20 bag of Coke in my hand and a fucking nugget of weed. But that was the thing, is you would leave there, and in your pockets, you would find shit you didn't know you had.
Right.
You know what
People
I'm
are
saying?
giving away drugs for free as
Jesus.
samples, or just
Bro,
a
you'd walk
party,
in
or
with one joint and walk out with like $300 worth of shit on you, because
Right.
everything all night long. A very popular thing is we'd get like either as a star tattoo like I have, or an X, and that's where people would put their bumps, and you just
Right.
you know what I mean? One of my
Yeah.
favorite stories is, let me just tell you really quick, because it's just so fucking funny, and it's one of my favorite memories of that place. We were going from
Of
Limelight.
Limelight?
Yeah, we were
Okay.
going from Limelight one night to another club called the Tunnel, and it was owned by Peter Gation too. It was owned by the same
Yeah.
guy.
Peter Gation. I was gonna get into him. Yeah, that's awesome that you brought it up. Go ahead.
So fucking Michael Alec is like, hey, we're gonna go to Tunnel. Do you want to go? And I'm like, yeah. So I get into a limousine with him and like 8 other people, a couple of drag queens, and like 8 club kids, and we're all sitting there. And someone's passing like Coke over me. I think it was. I might have been Cabe. I think it was Coke. And somebody else was walking by, hit it, and it fell all over my lap. And I shit you not, I had 2 drag queens, fucking 3 club kids trying to snort their shit off my lap, and the whole time. And so listen, so we're in a limousine. So I go like this, and I look back, just kind of like fucking high off my ass, and the whole ceiling is like a globe like laid out, and all the little dots, all these little lights are the main cities. And I was just like looking at it like, this is the best time of my life. You know what I mean? Like I was just like losing. I was just so stoked. Like all these people are snorting drugs off my crotch, and I'm just like, woo! It was one of my favorite memories of that place.
No, that's an amazing story. That's fucking awesome.
Let me just tell you really one other quick one real quick.
All right.
When I was telling you how like we used to go out all night and go to brunch, right?
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the Guinea Pig series, the Japanese gore flick, the Flowers of Flesh and Blood?
No, that doesn't even almost sound familiar.
Howdy? Okay, so back in like the early 80s, this Japanese guy was making these like gore movies, where it's like mutilation movies. And so one of them, it was called the Guinea Pig series, and one of them's called the Flowers of Flesh and Blood, where this guy, the movie is just like the first 10 minutes, this guy like creeping on a girl, like kind of watching from the bushes or whatever. Well, he kidnaps her, drugs her, takes her back to this like warehouse, and like chops off her body parts while music is playing in silence. And it's for the time period. Now, if you watch Faces of Death now, you're like, this is stupid. And back if you watched it when it came out, you're like, oh my God. And that's kind of like how this movie was. If we watched it now, we're like, how on the earth? But listen to this. Charlie Sheen watched this movie. He thought it was real, and he called the FBI. The FBI raided this dude's warehouse, and he had to go to court and shit and prove that he didn't really kill this girl. It's kind of similar to Cannibal Holocaust, where they thought he had murdered somebody.
I've heard this story on another podcast, honestly. I don't remember which one it was, but yeah, Charlie Sheen was so high out of his mind, he was convinced he was watching a snuff film, right?
So we're out to brunch one day, and this is before I knew about the Charlie Sheen aspect of it. Okay. But I was told that night we were going to watch a snuff film, and it was Flowers of Flesh and Blood. And so for fucking like the longest time, I thought I saw a snuff film until I found out it was a regular movie.
Okay.
So disappointed.
But I was out at lunch with like Michael Alec. That's who those are the ones who told me about the snuff, but it turned out to be the Charlie Sheen fucking bullshit. Like,
so you watched it with Michael Alec, and he's the one who told you about this movie, and he told you it was a snuff film?
We really thought it was a snuff film.
So he thought it was a snuff film too then?
At the time, right. This is like 90.
Okay. Y'all some weird motherfuckers, man.
Yeah, you party with some I don't think I'd ever party with you.
Do you remember in 1994 the scene started to die down when Mayor Giuliani, is that how you pronounce it?
Giuliani?
Mayor Giuliani took office.
Mayor Giuliani.
And he targeted the nightlife industry, and his movement was known as the Quality of Life campaign. Does any of that sound familiar? Do you remember this?
It does, because I was going there at the time, but it really didn't affect Limelight. I think it was till '96, which was after like pretty much after the murder and when Michael got arrested.
Yeah.
They did a raid shortly before that. Because at the time I was in jail. Actually, when Michael got arrested for the murder, he was in a town just south of me, but it was in the same part of New Jersey. And the county jail I was in, he was actually brought to. And I think he was there for like 36, 48 hours. I never saw him, but then he got transferred to New York. So I did like my year there. And then when I got out of jail at that time, I went up to New York, and the Limelight was completely different. It was like a normal ass nightclub in New York.
Oh, so this was probably after Peter Gation owned it then, right? Or no?
Right. That's after I got out of jail. Yeah. I don't
Okay.
think he owned it anymore at that point.
We're go ahead. What were you gonna say?
It right before I went to jail in '96 is when the club got raided.
Okay.
But I was still going there when it got raided. I wasn't
Yeah,
there
'cause
the night it got raided, but I was still like fun. I was still going there at the time.
okay. Yeah, we're gonna get into the into the murder of Angel here. But I just want to say a couple more things about so Michael Alec, when he moved up here from South Bend, I believe, was his plan to replace Andy Warhol, and they started dressing up crazy to kind of make fun of the Andy Warhol and all those guys, but then they shortly kind of realized like we just became everything that we made fun about. But they just
Um,
like they kept rolling with it.
yeah, that part I'm not like 100% sure on. If that's something that you probably heard in a documentary or something, I would
It
agree
was a
with.
direct quote from Michael Alec, so it made me wonder if like what was the whole thing with that? If like
That was
he's
never
making
something that I knew of, like was ever expressed to me with anything
right.
about Warhol. I know
Let's
like
talk.
later on when Michael like was kind of the era that I knew him, he was more into like horror and gore shit, you know what I mean?
Okay.
More than like the '70s any
Okay.
longer. I would imagine earlier in his career I could see him being more like obsessed with that era of things.
Right. Okay.
Because I know he
So
wanted to recreate whatever it was, Club 58 or whatever that club was.
54, Studio 54.
Studio 54. I know that was like his idea was to create a cooler version of that. And that's where like
Okay.
Warhol and all those dudes hung out.
Yeah, yeah, and he was saying that they basically dressed up like all those people to make fun of them, and then they kind of got stuck in it, and then
Right.
that's just what they did. But as their influence grew, so did their parties. They started in burger joints, semi truck beds. So then they moved to bigger venues. Like, does the area sound familiar? Danceteria, the Palladium.
Palladium. I went to Palladium a lot.
So, for example, the capacity, just to show how quick they grew, like, did they really take over Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's and Burger Kings? Like, they would invade these fast food restaurants and just like it was an outlaw party, is what they'd call it. They had
Yeah.
a secret, like, all right, at midnight, we're gonna go to fucking Burger King and we're just gonna fucking party. And they just party in a Burger King, and everyone's like, what the fuck is wrong with these kids?
That's exactly what they do. And he'd buy like, 300 burgers and just toss them to everybody. And
Yeah,
everyone,
like why? Was it just to show how big their dick was and how easy it is to take over your bullshit, or was it to have a middle finger in the face of society? Like, why do
I,
you think they did these things?
I think a lot of it has to do with like, well, how they had those flash mobs a few years back
Oh
where it was
yeah,
more of like a social thing, how you got recognized. And so everyone would run in a Target and do some fucking stupid dance.
right.
I think it's like an early version of that where you were establishing your scene because before them there was the disco era and stuff like that. But there was nothing for them to like really latch onto. There was no club for them to go to, and they were trying to create something. And so there was this
Okay.
flash mob mentality because when you're partying in a McDonald's, that's only going to last 15 minutes till the cops get there and start splitting skulls.
Yeah,
It was
exactly. Because they would throw
19
parties in the subway with a boombox until the cops broke it up, and they would
Right,
even have parties in ATM festivals,
right.
like in the fucking glass dome where the ATM is. Like they would literally have like 50, 60, however many people they could fit, and they'd just be fucking partying in a fucking ATM thing. Like
Yeah.
I don't get it. It's not for me, but like, man, kudos to them for pulling this shit off.
I'll
It's
say I
fucking
wasn't
amazing.
around in that area, or I don't think I would have been a part of it either.
Right. Well, this was the start of it. Like it just shows how
Right.
much they grew because they would start by invading Dunkin' Donuts, and then they would fucking pack up the Palladium. And the Palladium, the capacity is 2,160 people in the main room, and then their room upstairs was another 500 people.
And
So
that place would be sold out.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like, there's like fucking 3,000 of these club kids just hanging out, and like it all started in Dunkin' Donuts and shit. It's
Yeah.
fucking wild to think about.
Well, and then you'd have like
That's
you'd be at
crazy.
Limelight on Wednesday night, Palladium Thursday night, Tunnel Friday night, Limelight Saturday night, and literally you would go out every single night. Like, you know, Wednesday was the first night out, Disco 2000, and you go out every night until like Sunday, and then Monday and Tuesday were your days off.
Right. Yeah, like to recuperate and rehydrate and shit.
Pretty much.
So Peter Gation, he owned like a bunch of clubs. Now he got busted for tax evasion and got deported to Canada. And this was like was this around the same time Michael got in trouble for murder, or was these two separate occasions, or what?
I believe it's like after he got raided, it was a part of the investigation into why they were raiding him. You know, it was kind of like a joint thing with like the drugs that were moving in and out of Limelight and where they were coming from. But then there was also his tax situation. And I watched an interview with him not long ago where he was talking about opening more clubs again, but I don't know if that's ever happened or planning on happening. But yeah, he got basically booted from the US.
How accurate do you think the relationship between Michael Alec and Peter Gation is that was portrayed in the movie Party Monster? Like, do you think Peter really treated Michael like his son and just kept feeding him money and letting him fucking do all these crazy parties? And meanwhile, the fucking Peter Gation's wife is pissed off and you got to get rid of these fucking club kids?
That's 100% accurate.
Okay. Because the guy that wrote a book about the club kids, he said that they were just like magnificent manipulators. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's kind of how the movie portrayed Michael into manipulating the Peter guy into like, just keep letting me throw parties, man. I promise the money's coming. You'll make
Well, that's
money.
what I'm saying. I think it was just money driven shit anyway. Like the dude was like, I don't give a fuck what you do, just bring me money.
Right.
Well,
That's what
and
I mean. That's
go ahead, Audi.
no, go ahead, man.
A lot of it was that, but I mean, like regardless, if you were the Peter or Michael, they were both making a ton of money. And once that money came in, it's not like Peter was saying, Michael, stop selling drugs in my club. He's like, let's make more money selling drugs in my club. Because let's be honest, Michael wasn't the one who was like getting the drugs and bringing them into Limelight. Peter Gation had those connections and was helping with that. You know what I mean?
Oh, see, they left that part out of the movie. I don't remember that at all.
It wasn't solely Michael that was bringing them in. Like Mike,
they made it look like it was all Angel, because in the movie they kind of portrayed Angel as like the fuck off kid. Like, you got to pay your dues. Like, they kind of treated him as a prospect. And then when they found out he had drugs, they let him kick it and hang out.
Right.
That's kind of how the movie portrayed it, unless I'm mistaken, because I haven't seen it as many times as you. I've only seen it like 2 times.
Well, no, and you're not mistaken. That is how they portray it, and that's really how that scene was. Though it was, you're only a person in that scene if you were providing something, drugs, sex, people,
promotion, something.
Yeah, like you had to be somebody or provide something in order to be in the clique, in the crew, to be
right,
to
be a club kid.
Right. I mean, yeah, there was a lot of people that showed up and they were dressed a certain way. Like, I never got all like that. I was more of like,
you fucking liar.
You liar.
I got pictures of me and Jinkos with Tommy Hilfiger shirts on. All right. That's the kind of guy I was. Jinkos and Tommy Hilfiger.
Jinkos were fucking amazing. There's one more. I remember when I talked about how they would invade Dunkin' Donuts and ATM machines and shit.
Yeah.
There was a party where they invaded a cardboard shanty town of homeless people. Like, I don't know if it was under a bridge or what, but like they found out where all the homeless people were kicking. Yeah, right. And they just went in and took over all their cardboard houses and throwing parties in it. And they Michael Alec felt so bad afterwards that he gave all the homeless people a bunch of crack. It was like, here's some fucking crack, here's some money. Like, I don't know how true it is, man. This is just what I read on Wikipedia, so I don't know.
I've never heard that specific story, but a funny thing about Michael Alec, and just a little bit about like you could tell like the type of person he was. I always felt like by this story was shortly before he killed Angel, I was actually at Michael's apartment, and when you went into his bedroom, it was just so fucking weird. In the center of his bedroom, he had like a I don't know, like an 8x8 piece of plywood on top of two sawhorses. And in the corner of the room was a little double mattress that had like no sheet, a pillow, and then like the pillowcase was just disgustingly stained. And then like there's like a sheet maybe somewhere on the, you know what I mean? Like real crackhead style shit.
Oh yeah.
But then on this piece of plywood was the most magnificent fucking Lego city you've ever seen in your life. The
Really?
most intricate, fucking coolest looking Lego city I've ever seen in my life. It was so fun. I can't even get out of my mind how cool it was. It was probably at least 4 feet tall, and there was like rivers and all kinds of shit, dude. It was insane.
Well, I could see a bunch of dudes being just so fucking high on blow.
Yeah.
And like just fucking really getting into it and making this amazing Lego town. Like,
I mean, I get it. That was, one of the cool things about that period of time was the people that I hung out with in New York City. When I would go to their houses, they always had like the most interesting fucking decorations, right? So there was like this one lady who she had a fireplace mantle, and I've always wanted to recreate it. And she took Barbie head dolls and made them all punk rock and shit, and glued them. The whole top of her thing was like Barbie dolls, like big head dolls. They were all like punk rocked out with mohawks and stuff, and they were attached to the top of her mantle, her fireplace mantle. Those like things you hang on the side back in the 70s and 80s on kids' beds, and it has like the little mirror thing and the little thing, and you know what I mean? Like on Instagram, like one guy had a whole wall in his house completely covered in those things. Like he collected like 100 of them and covered a whole fucking wall in them, and just really weird. Like you go in and people's houses were just like pieces of art almost, like, you know what I mean?
right.
Wow.
It didn't have live, laugh, love on the fucking wall. It had
Exactly. Right. That's a good point.
Well, they should have.
Yeah, maybe those were some things that they should have fucking followed by, and
Yeah.
that they wouldn't all be fucking ended up dead and shit.
Well,
So we're at 2 hours in. I definitely want to talk about the events that happened on March 17th in 1996 when Angel got murdered. And I know that you knew him. So I hope this doesn't fuck with you too bad, but when we can't talk about the club kids without talking about this,
yeah, for sure.
So the events that took place on Sunday, March 17th, 1996 was the demise of the club kids, as well as Andre Angel Melendez's life. Michael Alec and his other roommate, Robert Freeze Riggs, killed the former Limelight employee and drug dealer. It started over a debt that Michael owed. He owed Angel he owed him a lot of fucking money on drugs. It basically started with Angel confronting him and them getting into a fight, and Angel got the best of Michael and was kicking his fucking ass. Michael's yelling out, "Help me, help me." Freeze, the other roommate came in, Robert Riggs, grabs a hammer, hits Angel in the head 3 fucking times, knocks him out. I don't know how the guy didn't fucking die from this, but
Right.
he hits him 3 times in the head. And then, according to whose testimony you read, they say that there was a cleaning chemical poured in Angel's mouth, and then they duct tape his mouth shut. And then they also say, according to whichever story you want to believe, one person says pillow, the other person says sweater. But they say after they put Drano or whatever in his mouth, duct taped him, they smothered him with either a pillow or a sweater, threw him in the fucking bathtub, and he sat there for 5 to 7 days. He started to stink. So Robert Riggs, also known as Freeze, went to Macy's. He bought a 2-inch cleaver or a 2-inch butcher knife and a cleaver. They cut off his fucking legs. They put one leg in a garbage bag, the other leg in a garbage bag, dumped it in the Hudson River. Then the following day, they took his upper body, they wrapped it in a sheet, placed it in a garbage bag, then put it in a cardboard box. And Robert Riggs, I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard they bought a TV just to have a big giant box to put the guy in. And they covered up the UPC code so it couldn't be traced back to him. And they took this fucking box downstairs through the lobby. And when they got outside, there just so happened to be a taxi cab there. They hailed a taxi, threw the box in the fucking trunk, took the taxi cab to the Hudson River area, and then they fucking tossed the box in the fucking river. And I didn't do a ton of research on this because by the time I was fucking getting into it, I'm like, fuck, we got to go live. That's about all the information I have on this murder.
Right.
But does any of that sound like bullshit from what you remember in the news? Or because I learned all of this stuff after the fact. I saw
Right.
Party Monster just as a weird movie. I didn't even know it was a true story. And
Right.
then just coincidentally, about 2 weeks ago, I'm like, oh fuck, I remember that weird movie. And then but by that time I knew these were true events.
Right.
And it was just strange that I hit up Audie and I'm like, dude, we should do a fucking episode on the Club Kids. And he's like, fuck yeah. And then I'm like, wait a minute. I know a guy who fucking knows these guys, and it's you.
Right. Well,
So I didn't go too deep into it. So I'd love for you to elaborate on it as much as you can.
so this is how involved like I was with them at the time. The girl who actually told on Michael Alec, this girl Brooklyn, was my roommate. Her and I lived with Freeze briefly. Like we all kind of stayed in the same apartment in the Bronx for a while. And so like that's how close I was to them. When just before he died, I got arrested in Tom's River for some shit I did when I was 18 and was in jail when the actual murder happened. And actually, I might have been out on bail when the
So we're going to go on record and say Vladimir Dewinter had nothing to do with Angel's death.
Absolutely.
He has a fucking alibi. He was in jail, assholes. Leave him alone about it. We're sick of getting the hate mail.
It's probably a good thing you were locked up. You probably
Yeah,
didn't
no
know.
shit, because now you have zero ties to
Yeah.
it, dude.
Well, and at the time, like I said, I was, I was doing whatever drug anyone would put in front of me. So if put in that position, I don't, who knows what the fuck I would have done.
Exactly. Yeah. No shit, man.
But yeah, no, I mean, I was staying with him, and Freeze was always kind of a weird dude, man. He was like the dude who seemed to like want to party with you the most, but it was just always uncomfortable. Like there was just an uncomfortableness about that dude. But Michael, I never would have in 100 years thought that he would. I mean, I guess anyone's capable of doing anything, right? Especially when you're like, out of your mind on drugs. But even when the times when I would hang out with him and we were both high as shit, he was always just so upbeat and like fun and loving everyone and wanting to give everyone free drugs. And do you know what I mean? Like his personality didn't come off to me as someone that was going to kill somebody. As far as the facts that you stated, that's all everything that's pretty lined up.
I think it boiled down to, outside looking in, me not being there, I think it boiled down to Michael owing Angel money. Angel confronted him. Angel started kicking his ass. And then the Freeze guy was just like, what's going on? Who knows if he was hungover or strung out, hits him with a hammer. Now they're like, fuck, we got to deal with this. We have a dead body.
Right.
Like, they're not going to go tell on themselves.
Michael had also stole a bunch of drugs from Angel that Angel was now financially responsible for.
Okay, what I read is he did it after the fact. After he killed him, he went in and took like $10,000 worth of cash, $5,000 worth of drugs. It was like hidden in his shoes or something.
Yeah, before that, he had also, Angel had fronted him drugs, but then he had also stole drugs from Angel as well. But then after they killed Angel, I think in the shoe they found like $5,000 and like a bunch of ecstasy or some weird shit like
right.
They found a bunch of other stuff that he had, but prior to that, he did steal a bunch of drugs from Angel.
This just goes to show, kids, don't do drugs, but if you are, pay your dealer.
I like how we go from like the straight edge stuff to the drug stuff, not the drug stuff to the straight edge stuff.
Yeah, right. So how accurate, you knowing Michael and St. James or whatever, and Angel Melendez, how accurate were the actors in this movie portraying these people? Was because I always thought, like, even outside looking in, not knowing these people, I'm like, Macaulay Culkin and Seth Green are really overdoing it right now. Like nobody acts like that.
Right.
I know gay people can be flamboyant and fun, but these two were just like, man, how accurate were they portraying?
They killed it, man. Absolutely.
No, was that pun intended or no pun intended or what?
Yeah,
it's a fun movie,
like
but
movie.
how? No, me too. It's a fun movie, but was Michael Alec really the way Macaulay Culkin played him in real life? Was he really like that?
He was extremely flamboyant like that. Very, talked with his hands a lot. He's very, had a feminine touch to his voice. James St. James was a little bit more reserved in real life than how Seth Green played him. And he tried to like get that essence, but it's I don't know how to explain it, but there was more of a formality when it came to James St. James, more like, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
there's a way you eat, there's a setting you put down on your table. Much more refined, I guess, would be the term I would use in comparison to how,
Structured.
yeah.
Was their
Yeah.
apartment as shitty as they put it in the movie? Was it kind of run down and kind of a shithole?
Well, like I said, the one that, the one I went to the most that Michael Alec lived in with the Lego City, that place was not like a shithole. It was basically it was in a really nice apartment building, and that was like, I think like 25, 30 stories tall, but it was like a shithole with inside of a nice apartment building.
Mm.
St.
Because you gotta-
James is dead also, is he not? Is he dead too?
No, he's still
No,
alive.
he's still alive. He's weird.
He's still alive. So Michael Alec is the one that died just 2020 on Christmas.
Yeah.
Christmas Eve 2020, shortly before midnight. He died at his Washington Heights home from an accidental heroin overdose at 54. This guy is 54 years old, still out in the world doing fucking heroin, man.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah,
That's
he got
fucking
out of prison and was
crazy.
chasing that dragon, man.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
you
no
gotta
shit.
keep in mind when he was probably doing drugs, most of the time he was in prison too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Charles Manson said there's sex and drugs in prison, so.
Yeah, that was actually, think like that girl Brooklyn, and the show, I think her name is Tia Leone, if I remember. Is that her name?
I think so.
Yeah, Tia something. She's in Orange is the New Black.
She played in
Beverly Hillbillies.
And Kids. She played in Kids too, didn't she?
Yeah, the girl in Party Monster was in Kids. I remember that. I'm like, man, this girl's familiar.
You guys are thinking of the other chick.
There is a girl in Party Monster that was also in Kids, but it's not the girl you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Here's a funny connection to Kids. The black kid who skates and he pulls his dick out and whips it around.
Yeah, he's a real professional skateboarder, actually.
He was a professional skateboarder and he was a fucking busboy at Limelight at the same time.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I shit you not.
I like that movie, Kids.
Dude, from what I understand about the movie Kids is none of those people were actors. Like they were making this movie in that town or wherever these people were from. Yeah, and they gathered these real kids from the city and was like, you're going to be in the movie, you're going to be in the movie. And Rosario Dawson was like, I never acted a day in my life. And I had to ask my mom and dad if I could be in this fucked up ass movie. Yeah. And thank God they said, yeah, because look at her now, dude. She's been fucking,
There was two actors. Either they bloomed from that or what. But the other guy was
the one guy
Friday. Next Friday.
Oh, yeah, Roach.
He's suicide. And the other kid played.
Friday.
The other one played in the one Telly, the one that had the AIDS.
Right.
Played in the movie Bully. And he played in another TV series as well. So I don't know. Maybe they sprung from that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think a lot of those kids sprung from like
he was in some CKY movies with Bam Margera and Ryan Dunn when they were CKY too.
Have you seen Gummo?
I have not, but it's made by the same people who made Kids, right?
Yeah, it's
I heard it's far worse.
Be a fucked up movie, I'm sure.
It's the trailer park death metal version of Kids.
Right.
Oh, nice. What's it called?
Gummo.
Gummo. Gummo. I first heard about it. I watched the movie Belly, and DMX is in it, Nas is in it, Method Man is in it.
Yeah.
And they're all at DMX's house, and DMX is watching Gummo, and there's like a kid dressed in a pink bunny suit. And like, don't they kill some kid? And they're like, he stinks like shit or something.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing that scene. I'm like, what the fuck is that? My homeboy was like, dude, that's Gummo. The dude who made Kids made this movie.
Yeah.
Is it going to bother me? Like, am I going to use PTSD as a lack of a better term? Like, is it going to bother me like the way it did Spit on Your Grave or Last House on the Left? Like,
no,
is Gummo fucked up that bad?
I don't really like when people fuck with animals. And there's like a part where they're like shooting guns at like a rabbit or a cat. And then they're like hanging it from a tree and then they sell it to like the local. But it's just more
real. Like real?
No, I don't. It's not real, but it's just.
It's
and it
You,
just is
you,
kind of like like you're just like, ah, fuck.
All right.
Like
yeah.
even in American Psycho, right? When Christian Bale kicks the dog, you don't see it, you just hear the dog yelp, and every time it makes me cringe.
But
You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's okay when he's biting a chick's titty off.
Yeah,
Like
I don't
that's
care. Yeah,
fine.
bite him all off.
it's okay. He gets his dick blown out, but if he hears a dog, it's
Yeah,
it's
right.
game fucking over.
Y'all
Yeah.
might have sex. It sounds like a flat tire going down the road.
Oh my god, that's fucking hilarious.
God.
Well, guys, what do you think, man? We're over 2 hours. Should we end this or what?
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the best episodes we've done, and I'll probably say
I
that
agree.
I had a good time.
for every
We
episode that we do between here and there. But Vlad, it was great having you, man.
Yeah, man.
I
Interesting
truly
stories.
appreciate you coming on. Yeah, you're a very interesting guy. Thank
Yeah,
you so
I don't-
I
much.
appreciate
I
it.
don't think I'd be able to tell thousands of people about my dick getting blown out.
About your
Right.
over microwave dick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think I'd be able
But
to.
before we let you go, man, let the listeners know where they can pick up your Zompire box, man.
So basically, we sell through Store Envy. So it's just zompire.storeenvy.com. We do have a YouTube channel where we do post stuff. And as always, on Facebook, we have the Zompire Horde community page and the Zompire page that you can follow. Yeah, that's pretty much the stuff I'm doing. I actually, oddly, I know both of you because I started unboxing videos. You guys were doing unboxing videos, and since I started Zompire, I felt like it was a conflict of interest to unbox other people's boxes, and so I haven't done one through my Vlad the Rad Productions in 2 years. Well, when I got that box in the mail from Mike Tapp, I did an unboxing today, and I actually posted it on the Vlad the Rad Productions YouTube channel. So anyone out there that hasn't seen that yet,
Yeah, go check it out.
Yeah, you
I'm
can
gonna-
always go to my YouTube channel as well. I'm not trying to push my YouTube channel because I give 0 fucks about it. But the only reason why I bring it up is because I unbox your company's box more than any others. So if anyone wants to see a Zompire unboxing, just look up Cool Kid Collector, and there's a fucking ton of them. So
And I believe that if you use Cool Kid Collector 10, you get 10% off anything on our website.
I think that's a true story.
I don't see, after all the fucking discount codes I've given away, I'm pretty sure I've given you one.
Yeah. No, you
I think
totally did.
everybody has a discount code at this point. But the
He
only
just
one I have is
forgets.
Cool Kid Collector 10. And actually,
All
I
right.
think it's Cool Kid 10. I think it's Cool Kid 10.
All right.
I didn't want to make it too long. And then, so in your videos, you got to type that in the bottom so it reads, you know?
Yeah. Fucking
Get
yeah.
fancy with
Let's
it.
do it.
I just want to tell you guys, man, I had a great time, and hopefully one day we get to do this again, either on my podcast or have me back on. It was a real good time.
Yeah, that sounds like
Yeah.
an amazing idea. I would love to be on yours. I'm sure Audie would too. And I
gotta
don't
get
mind
to this
having you
level
back,
of the
man.
Pictures.
Yeah, it's definitely this is definitely a learning experience. As much effort as we're putting into this, like as you can see, like I'm like the dude in Matrix that's behind the scenes and shit.
What do they call
Yeah,
him in
Audie is
Spider-Man?
definitely Audie is the tech guy for sure.
What do they call him in Spider-Man? Like the man behind the desk or something like that? Like with
I think
the
so.
little fat kid in Spider-Man. He's like,
Yeah.
the man behind the earpiece or something like that.
Yeah, that's me. I just let Darren do all the talking. I'm just like, all right, is this working? Everything's good.
You're like,
Oh,
now
And then
we're
I come
doing.
in, and then I come in, yeah. And then I'm like,
It takes him that whole time just to put the word is across the bottom.
yeah,
of what we're
yeah.
doing.
It takes me like 30 minutes just to type this. I'm like, all right, keep talking, guys. Just keep talking.
Right on, man.
Shit.
all right, thank you guys so much for being a part of this. I love both of you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this, and we're gonna fucking get out of here,
But
man.
before we go, we got one more thing.
Oh yeah, Vlad, stick around for this.
So
All right.
we did the last episode. We did a giveaway. It was an episode on the 27 Club, which was rock stars Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain, and Amy Winehouse, which I don't even feel like she's even at that level with those musicians, but Darren seemed to like her. We were doing a giveaway. We said, hey, go and
You have to like scream.
yeah. we were doing a giveaway, and part of the giveaway was go give us a rating on I think it was Spotify, and then posted on the AMP page or whatever. Tag Don't Blame Us, and we went through. We chose a winner. And I think I'm saying his name right. Benny is the winner of this right here. Check this thing out, dude. I almost kept this for myself.
Oh, whoa, that's
Um,
cool.
it's Jim Morrison. It's got his
The Doors
birthday
logo.
and his
Did you
death
print
day.
that?
Yeah, I printed this. I painted it.
Oh, no shit.
It's it's solid filament. Little thing on the bottom says thank you and don't blame
Nice.
us. But anyway, Benny is the winner of this.
Congrats, Benny. That's fucking dope.
Yeah, it definitely and I'm actually I was like Darren, I don't want to give this away. And he's like hey fuckface, you can fucking print another one. And I'm like, fuck man, you're right.
It only took 36 hours, asshole. Quit
yeah.
being greedy.
It was 38. But yeah, he's the
who's
winner
counting?
of that. Congratulations, Benny, if you're watching. If not,
Congrats,
then obviously
Benny.
you'll watch this.
Congratulations, Ben Newman. He is also one of our Patreon.
Yeah. Yep.
Benny Blanco from the Bronx.
Yeah.
And-
so if anyone wants to support this podcast just by, more than listening to it, look us up on Patreon. Look us up on anchor.fm/support, I think. There's something like that. Audie's the tech guy. You have to ask him. But we should probably thank our Patreon subscribers or producers. I don't know if you were done. I was pissing.
I got one
and
more. I got
came in.
one more thing, and it's basically benefiting the podcast, but she doesn't know it. If you head over to feetfinder.com and type in bmarsh5132 and subscribe to my wife, she's going to be showing her feet. Yeah. I'm trying to wrap my head around it because I'm like, do a OnlyFans and charge $100 to show your puss. And then she's like, no, I got more morals than that. And I'm like, $100 is $100. But anyway, yeah, I'm giving her a shameless plug. It's feetfinder.com.
There's people out there who will pay her $100 to see her
Absolutely,
crack a raw egg on her pinky toe. Like,
Yeah.
there's just weird motherfuckers out there.
Yeah.
Benny's watching. Ben Newman is watching. Congratulations, Ben. You won
Congratulations, Benny.
Jim Morrison bus.
Check it out, dude. This is yours, man.
That's all yours.
I almost didn't want to give it away.
But I made him because I told him if
But
he
he
didn't, I
made
was
me.
going to pierce his dick and make him lift a battery.
You know what? After this show, I'm gonna go try that.
What?
No.
Crack a raw egg on your foot or
No,
lift
I'm
the
gonna
battery with your dick?
I'm not gonna pierce it. I'm just gonna kind of like hold it with like a 550 cord at the base.
I got a challenge.
Oh,
Got a
no.
challenge.
Oh,
A 1 week challenge. You got 1 week to train. Take a butt plug, right?
I'm out.
Try put a chain to a car battery, and you got to be able to pick the car battery up without the butt plug coming out.
Like Kegel butt, like
Yeah, you got to kegel it in there, and if it slips out, you lose.
I'll put that on the
That's
Patreon.
all you, Audie. I'm pretty sure he's talking.
Whoever's plug slips out first loses.
Oh shit!
Nope. All right, guys, let's give our shout out to our producers. Ben Newman is one of our producers. Thank you so much. Brent Kopaka is one of our producers. Thank you so much. Ryan Merriman is also one of our producers. Thank you so
That's my
much.
guy.
If you want to be we also have two others.
Yeah,
Guys, you got to remember that you got to give StreamYard permission if you're on Facebook to grant your name. You got to give permission. And if you donate to the Anchor thing, you can do it anonymously. We have two others that are anonymous. We have no idea who you are.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for contributing and paying and being a producer of the show.
Yeah.
So if you want to get credit for it, please change your name. And then we will give you a shout out at the end of every show as one of our producers.
Yeah, and I just want to paint the picture real quick for people. These donations is going to be given back. It takes a lot to run these programs. This is like a $50 a month program. And what kickback we would get, it's going to go towards stickers, merch, prints like this. I can buy filament, hook people up. So it's nothing like crazy. We're not like
trying to quit our day jobs and say, give us your money. It's not what we're doing.
I see a lot of people that do that and give nothing back, but more or less it's just paying for what we're just trying to do. I would love
So we
to give
can
a
keep
shirt.
fucking doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me know. Let me know when you guys need radio station-esque license plates. You know, that have your pictures on either side, like the Texas 2 one you just got.
Oh yeah,
Dude.
man. That would be awesome.
Yeah. Like,
Dude, Hate My Name was at a convention today. He got the dude who played Tom Morga, who played Nubbins,
yeah.
and Bill Johnson on that plate. I sent them. That was in the last
Nice.
box.
That's
He just got
awesome.
it signed today, double signed.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
that's
pretty
cool.
stoked for him.
Very,
Sorry,
very cool. No, I'm glad you did, man. That's a great point. I would love to have that on the license plate.
Hell yeah.
So is that it, gentlemen? Any last words? What do you guys think?
Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm your
man.
co-host, Vlad the Rad. You're on 66.6 AM on your FM dial.
So professional.
That was nice. He's got a fucking rad voice, don't he?
I sound like something out of the trailer park. Well, you got this goddamn.
Well,
Yeah.
God damn it, boy. Bobby.
Go look at pictures of Brittany's feet.
Go
Do
look
it.
at feet or
Yeah.
dog.
Go subscribe. Her pretty feet.
It's called Brittany's Toe Jam.
That sounds like a Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 fucking part. It's a downhill
No, wait.
jam, but it's like,
So is she gonna like have like a store where maybe she sells old socks or?
Well, I
You know
told
what
her
I
she
mean?
needed to sell panties, like used panties, but she doesn't listen to me.
dude, there's
So-
people out there who want to see
I'm
like
just like,
Dude, there's
Twizzlers
people out
and
there-
between toes. I'll give
who
you
will
25 bucks. It's
Dude, there's
crazy.
people out there who will have her step in a jar of like jam, jelly, have it put
Yeah,
your
or
back
mayonnaise,
in, and
mustard.
ship it to them for like $100.
yeah, dude. There's a girl on TikTok that farts in cans and shit, dude. I'm
I
in the
know.
wrong business. I need to start doing some
Oh,
crazy shit.
oh, really? Is there?
That sounds disgusting.
Whatever.
Like
Who
how
would do
long
so?
does a fart stay in a jar though? Really?
I don't,
Like,
I
if
don't
she's-
know.
Let's say she's
Until
in
you
Florida.
open the lid.
Let's say she's in Florida and I'm in like Toronto and she's got to mail it to me. How long is that fart good for though? You know what I mean?
No clue.
On the
I could
next
test it.
episode.
I could fart in a jar, and then the next episode I'll open it on the air and be like,
See if it still smells like an
It'd be
ass.
like-
Baba Booey.
it'd be like,
Oh, it stinks.
all right,
we got to get out
gotta
of here.
go.
All right.
We're pushing 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
If we don't end it, we're going to be here till fucking...
5
Don't
in the
nobody
morning.
want to listen to a 6-hour
No.
podcast.
That's true.
All right, fellas.
All right, I love you guys. Thank you
Love
so
you
much.
guys.
All right,
been
man.
fun.
See you,
Hit
dude.
that outro, Audie.
Yep.
Thank you for tuning in to our little Passion Project podcast. Remember, we go live every single Friday night, same damn time, same damn channel. So if you miss it, don't blame us.